Good.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about Valentine's Day tonight. But first, like we always say, please like it, please share. That's how we're going to grow this thing. And we've been really enjoying the support lately, so we want to thank you. And we got some big news coming out of the Tinder Box for this up and coming event March and the month. So you'll hear about that, but whatever.
Grammar was that?
Yeah, I don't know. And we got Tanya on, so it's great. And,
Hey, Tanya.
Hi, guys.
Yeah. So while Steve shares, I'll probably share and continue to try and talk at the same time.
Yeah, I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Get on Facebook or, text your mom, whatever you got to do to share this podcast that's going on right now to join the conversation.
I definitely did.
I might text my mom.
One more viewer. Can't hurt.
She's been on before.
Mm-hmm.
She has been. It's been nice time with Mom.
Dorothy Crane is a saint.
I believe that.
She's a nice
100%.
chick. And my parents normally tune in too, as you know.
They are awesome also.
Yeah.
They're lovely people.
Dustin, stop it.
We have
God damn it!
we have a good
Hold it in!
we have a good studio audience tonight, so
You know, I find it odd that entertaining more accurately that Alicia's here on the Valentine's Day special.
I know, and Liz will be here later, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So
I kicked her
I
out.
thought she was staying, and
No,
I was really.
I told her, "You get out of here, you
I'm sure you did.
stupid little person."
I'm sure you did.
I'll bet those were the exact words.
She's little.
Quote.
I almost suggested having like Alicia, you,
Yes!
and Liz.
We should have.
Maybe next year. Maybe next year.
That'll be great.
All right, I'm all shared up here. Let's go. Stephen Cook, what's up? Happy Valentine's Day. Talked to you yesterday on the phone, and I hope you did enjoy your birthday. That was awesome for you to tune in on Monday night.
Yeah, and Dave Willard, Dave's on, and the group is going back to Cuba at the shop. Brad, Mark, Dave, Tony.
No,
Not
just
Tony.
Mark, Brad, Brad's
Andy's
been on,
coming.
and Hutch, who we've talked about.
Yeah.
I know Willard wants to get on here as well, so.
And I've pretty much made it known that I'm going this year.
Yeah.
So, I don't know when, but I'm going to make the time to get
I'm planning on going next year, so.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
Good with the audio?
Yeah.
All right.
You guys ready?
I got to get all set up for
Sorry.
no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. You know the glass clink, people.
Here we go. Dustin, you done? I think that no. Just waiting on Dustin.
Torch.
It's gonna be on Facebook. Just Dustin lighting up his
They
cigar.
got to hear that torch.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
And I think he's been lighting it for 3 minutes and 15 seconds. All right, you ready?
it's a process.
All right.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. We are going to be talking about Valentine's Day for the second time.
Valentine's Day Eve.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
that's
But
tomorrow.
for the audio,
Or they missed it if they.
that's true.
Hope
Yeah.
you had a
So
good
you might be
Valentine's
in
Day.
trouble right now,
Or not.
For those of
Like,
you
I don't
listening to
know
the
your
audio,
life.
yeah.
or not. You don't know. But I'm Jake Sanders, along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 54. We have a great guest for you this evening, Tanya from the Tinder Box at Easton.
Tanya Priest.
Yeah.
Priest.
Hi, y'all.
It's good to have you on.
Yeah.
You're the second female guest we've ever had on the
I
podcast.
know, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and it's awesome. We want to get more females on the podcast. 'Cause it's always fun. That's a good guest.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a great guest, I know. And I was...
You
Or
better
else.
be. You better be.
No, I know she is. That's what I was doing when I was doing the intro or on my phone.
Yeah.
I pulled a Steve and tried to talk on, video and by myself while I was in the car talking about the podcast.
I saw that.
Yeah. And,
But you went live and then Liz,
I know, no
Liz
one
was
was-
like,
no one
oh,
was
Jake
tuning-
Sanders is live.
No one was tuning in. So
Well,
I
we
didn't
saw a
know
couple
what to
comments go by, and then it's just like you staring at it, trying to look down and you look up at the road, and you look down at your phone, and then you just leaned into.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
has been paused. You're like, oh, that was good. That was a good one.
Well, I had realized that I had my volume on my phone, and it was back, and it
reverse.
was like probably 20 seconds delayed.
I mean,
It was really weird, and so I was like, yeah, I probably should stop this. So I did, but
just kudos for safe driving, guys. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it was on a magnet mount, so it was 10 and 2, and I was good.
Yeah, I don't do that. I should. I don't. Although I shot mine today in a parked car, so.
You normally do that though, or a park light or a stoplight, right?
Oh, yeah, because normally, like, as it's cutting it off, like, the thing starts rattling around again.
It's at least a 4-minute pause if you get stopped at Morse Road and Spencer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've timed it. It's 4 minutes.
Yeah.
wow.
So, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, we talk about a whiskey, we talk about a cigar, and then we get into our life topic. Tonight, we're going to be sipping on Smooth Ambler Contradiction. I've had it once before, but I can't remember, so I might as well not have had it. And that was provided by Tanya, so thank you for bringing that.
Yeah.
And we always love our guests that bring stuff to let us try and experience together.
That is one way you'll be invited back.
Yes.
For sure.
For sure. That's a given.
Solid.
If you want to come back.
I mean, you're,
I always want to come back.
you're a great guest or else. Thanks for rigging shit.
Perfect.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
It's amazing. So we're going to be smoking the Punch Grand Puro Nicaragua with their new band on there. And Steve can talk about that a little more. Thank you, Tinder Box at Easton, for providing that. Thank you, Altadis, our main sponsor, for providing the Montecristo White series. We're going to be smoking the Robusto tonight, which is an amazing cigar, and we'll talk about that as well. And like I said before, we're going to be talking about Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So this is the second episode that we've talked about Valentine's Day, and last year it was pretty cool because it was our second episode that we had ever done, and it was a great episode, and the conversation on Valentine's Day was amazing. So we figured we'd do it again a year later.
Yeah.
And we hope that it's going to be just as great or better.
So yeah, absolutely. So one of our sponsors, Tinder Box Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company.
Yep.
We appreciate all the support from you guys, continued support. It helps us out do what we can do here, and also save on Jake's and my expenses to do this podcast. So that helps out a lot. So thank you to all you guys. We said it, I think, on the Facebook, but on the audio also. Share, like,
yes, and
tell people about it. That's really how we've expanded. We actually get a lot more action on the Facebook Live or the Facebook video after the fact, where we've gone over 4,000 views so far. So we want to continue to grow. So hopefully, if you guys take something from this, please do share it and just put it on your social media, share it to pages that you follow. That's what we've been doing, and we've had a lot of success with that. We've got a lot of new viewers and followers, so that helps out.
I wanted to ask Tanya, how long have you really been wanting to be on the podcast? Or did you even think about it, or did we just kind of ask you and you were like, okay?
Well, so like an idiot, he asked, and I said, yeah, sure. What's the topic? I should have probably asked the topic beforehand, but I just went the other way.
There's no fun in that.
Yeah.
There's no fun in that, and definitely when it's not scripted for the most part. And I mean, you just never know really what's going to happen.
You don't. But I listened. Did you listen to last year's?
A little bit, yeah. It was good.
I'd say that was our first actual full-fledged one, because episode 1
wasn't supposed to happen.
Kind of like a test or whatever, and then episode 2 was this time last year, obviously, and we did Valentine's Day. And it was interesting because we had 5 people at least around the table. It was 5 or 6 people, and it was when Jake and I were still trying to figure out our format. So it was.
And we also did 2 bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did a comparison because it was a gift from Kurt Kraft.
It was a Woodford and then a Woodford store pick.
Yeah, so it was interesting though listening to that, because I know that a couple of us looked up what Valentine's Day meant and the story behind it and everything like that. So instead of going all over again, but there's definitely, we had some interesting conversations. So if you guys are just now tuning in to the podcast, starting to follow it, I know met a gentleman at the Tinder Box. Was that last Tuesday? Yeah, last night.
It was last night.
Last night, and he said he came across our podcast, and he started from the beginning. He's got an hour-and-a-half commute one way right now, so he's just every day I'm listening to an episode.
So he finishes one episode in one day.
do it.
Listen to it halfway there, and then halfway back.
Well, the earlier ones weren't 2 to 3 hours. They're all like 2 hours at the most usually. But so that was kind of cool. He's on I think episode 11. So if he's tuning in tonight, that's fantastic. It's great to have you on, and it's great to, like I said, go back and listen to some of the older episodes, kind of to see how far we've come. But that does, it's a year ago. It seems like forever ago.
Do you think it sounded differently because back then we had the mic up on the stand, so it was hanging pretty much at eye level.
It did.
And now the mic's in the middle. It's sitting actually on the table, and it's in the middle of the table.
So there were a couple things we were using.
And you've been mixing it with
Yeah, I've got I think a little bit better at GarageBand, but it was one of those things that we did have it upside down, but if you remember, we didn't know the settings on it because your former boss was letting us borrow it, and they didn't know the settings on this microphone. So we're using this Yeti Blue. And
there's this little knob on the back there that has whatever.
Yeah, it's something where we use the omnidirectional, but we were using whatever setting it showed up on.
Yeah.
I think at first, so I noticed that in the car, when we had more people around the table, we weren't videotaping it at the time, but it was something interesting where my voice would be on the left channel and you'd be on the right channel, and people would be in between, and now it's kind of all around.
Yeah.
I think it sounds better, but it definitely is different. We've come a long way in a year.
We have, and we hope that everyone listening thinks so too. And I don't know.
Well, y'all forever and always be my favorite podcast to clean to. So.
She said that.
I don't watch you guys. I just listen, but I put it on and turn it really, really obnoxiously loud, and then clean my house, the whole thing. So.
That's awesome.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and it's just the right amount of time for me to actually do a deep clean, usually. Yeah. So
we'll have to do that at the end of the podcast. You say all right, Tanya, you good?
Yeah, do it.
So. Do you want to tell them?
I'm still listening.
You want to tell them the big news, Steve?
Yeah. So we talked about it last week, and the following day, so Thursday last week, we did finally get approval for the Smoking 10 event.
If you follow us already, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty much, but.
That's a big thing. So it's a big announcement. We've had great success since yesterday selling tickets. It's going to be a little bit different. It's our 7th annual. You can kind of hear I'm getting sick, and I think it's partially the weather changes, it's partially the whole thing with the stress of the new house, and then also on Thursday, basically, as soon as I got a green light on that Smoking 10 event, it was basically shoving all my ideas all into one that we actually got approval for. So Thursday night, and then Friday, Saturday, for those of you that were on the live on Monday on the Bourbon BS podcast, that was when I was actually taping before that the promo kind of intro video to the 10 events. So it's basically been nonstop since we found out what's going on.
It was a good intro. Steve did a good job with the whole, what would you call that? Paisley, design.
I think they call it organic.
Is that what it is?
It's called organic.
On iMovie?
I did that frame by frame with the stylus.
Organic.
That's what they called it.
It looks like Paisley swirls.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know. But anyways. So
it's going to be a busy month. It's
Yeah.
going to be we'll get some rest in April.
Yeah. But it's March 15th, and we're excited to have it. It's going to be, I'm actually really excited because it's going to be night. It's going to be a night,
I'm
a gig, and I think that's actually going to make it better.
Yeah,
but that's just
amazing.
Me. And hopefully it's not freezing that night. But
it's my first 10 event, but I'm so excited.
Good.
Although I will say I was a little miffed when I came in. Miffed?
I've never heard that before.
Miffed. When I came in and I was spot number 50. I was like, guys.
Yeah. Well, that was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Listen, I don't need you commenting on my life.
Oh, here we go.
No, it's,
Yeah, no, I know. It was 50 deep. But it's amazing. I'm really excited.
Good. Yeah, we've sold, when I left there today, it was around 90 tickets, 70 tickets.
That's great.
It was over 90. It's 90. I don't know, it's 90 plus, but yesterday we sold 70 tickets first day from 10 o'clock till 9 o'clock, so that was a good first day. So hopefully we have some more tickets being sold. If you guys are listening to this on Friday, or if you're watching right now tonight, call the shop. We can do a ticket over the phone. It's Friday, March 15th, 6:30 p.m. till 12:30 a.m., and there's something going on the entire time, including ending the whole night with some live music with which I think I've seen JJ Snare before, but it's actually their fun band. Most of the songs they sing, and it has a female lead singer.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Which means I can sing along.
You can sing along. Whatever you want, yeah.
Depending on if she's an alto or soprano, but you know.
I want to say she's
what
probably an
range
alto. Yeah, right up your alley.
It's so good.
Well, we're excited to have you, Tanya, and this was kind of alluding to when I was talking about me taking the video in my car, was the fact that on the video I actually said, you like drinking whiskey, you like smoking cigars, and you like talking, so you fit right in.
These are all things I do, yes.
Yes, it's awesome.
True enough.
So, diving into our whiskey of the evening, again, thank you, Tanya, for bringing it. The Smooth Ambler Contradiction. It comes out of the Smooth Ambler Spirits and Distillery that's in West Virginia. And they've been doing great things in the last few years. But once again, it's not a bad thing, but it is an outsourced whiskey. And guess where it comes from?
MGP.
Comes from MGP.
Right.
And so it's pretty much like them, Boone County, Blom Brothers, those are, and even Bell Mead that's down in Tennessee are all, the major four that Jim Beam, that MGP is, sourcing to, and they're killing it right now with it. And so it's 100 proof, but this was based off of my notes that I had. So this actually isn't 100 proof. They have different batches. So just to give you a frame of reference, the review that I was reading was back in 2016.
Okay.
And that was batch number 4. This bottle was batch number 143.
Holy shit.
So in 2 years, I mean, think about it.
How big are the batches?
I don't know really, and that is a really good question. But they've definitely amped up production because when this stuff first came out, it wasn't one that you could just find on the shelf. Now
I still haven't seen it on the shelf. Which one?
The one over in Gahanna, like as you're getting on the highway, that one.
Oh, Hamilton Road area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've been seeing it pop up. I started seeing it pop up through the fall of 2018. So it pretty much took 2 years for it to really hit the shelves. And again, this is batch number 143, and this is 92 proof. So originally it was a higher proof. It's a blend of a 2-year and 9-year rye bourbon.
Rye.
So, 9-year.
It's
sorry.
50% rye, 50% not.
Or no, I'm sorry. It's a blend of 2-year and 9-year bourbon.
Not rye.
No, I misspoke.
What were you saying?
I was saying, it says it on the bottle.
Is there a rye in there?
There's a rye. That's why it's called the Contradiction. It's a blend of 50% rye, 50% not. And I tend to like ryes anyway, but I also picked it because of the name.
I haven't poured a glass yet.
Maybe that's it. But yeah, I think it's. But that is the difference, and that's why it's called a contradiction. You're absolutely right. The blend, I believe. Well, now I'm completely screwed because the notes that I had was off. But
damn it.
Because in 2016, the one blend was 60% corn, 20% rye, and 20% barley. And the second blend was 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4 malted barley.
Where does it say this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I googled it. I lied. It's not on the bottle.
I was gonna say it says straight bourbons.
It is. It's 2 different kinds of bourbon.
All right.
Yeah. One is a rye bourbon. That's what they said, and then the other is not. It's corn mash. 50%. That's what they said on everywhere I read. When I googled it, I picked it because of the name. If I'm 100% honest with you.
Because of Valentine's Day, the contradiction.
Yeah.
Because you feel like sometimes
Valentine's Day is a fucking contradiction.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I picked.
The good news is that I like how they say it, and I thought for a second that maybe there was some bad things going on, but it says no elephants were harmed in the making of this whiskey.
Oh.
There is
That's
a
a
disclaimer.
great marketing team.
I forgot to check that. Man.
That's a great marketing.
It's right there on the bottle.
I know, but I
Good.
just forgot to know that.
Good. I like it.
Yeah, so my notes are completely screwed. But anyways, that's basically that is the contradiction. You have an older bourbon and a high proof rye mash bill that is younger. So you're getting that balance between an older complex bourbon with a high rye and spicy mash bill, and it's young too.
Yeah.
But right off the nose, this is 92%. And right off the nose, it is very, very sweet smelling. And which is what
I gotta get to it.
MGP is known for pretty much. And that's why everyone loves them. They are making some great stuff, and I know I say that all the time, but if you smell this, it is, I mean, caramel, honey, vanilla,
delicious.
Brown sugar, any rich, there's no chocolate. I don't get any like chocolate out of there, but if you think of like golden honey or anything like that, you're right on the nose with that.
Anything kind of in the blondie area of desserts, like not chocolate, but like the more caramelly.
Yeah.
Like any of those. That's what I'm getting.
I got to pour, but I'm slow tonight. I still have my pre-podcast drink going on.
For shame.
I'm not upset about it.
I think it's great. This is actually a lot better than what I remember it, which I probably tried a bottle in 2017. I don't know what batch it was, but I don't remember it being this good. I think this is an approachable whiskey. I think it's something that everyone should try. How much was this?
This was with tax around $40, and the thing I really liked about it is that I don't have to open it up, like with water or ice. And I'm lazy, so I don't have to go get other things to like enjoy my drink. I just want to, like water or ice, as I said.
Also water, but go on.
Frozen water in a solid state. Yeah. No, but I'm lazy, so I just want to have my drink, and that be that. And this is everything. I tend to lean more towards the sweeter side of bourbons. That's what I like.
Yeah.
And it doesn't burn. That's something, because some bourbons, because the higher proof, like they tend to like right about here, like just burn. And
but it's funny because she likes rye.
You know, I do.
But I don't know. A lot of the ryes I don't think have like it's more spice. It's not that not always heat, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe.
It's with a rye, it's warm in my mouth, but it doesn't like burn right here. Like with the
In
others,
your
it
chest.
hits right here, and then it's like, oh, you're on fire.
Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you. Now I'm gonna figure that out.
What I always like about smooth amber bottles, and you'll see a lot of people talk about it on bourbon groups over Facebook or whatever, is the famous Sarah signature on the back. It's all their bottles have been bottled. It says right on the back the batch number and then who it was bottled by, and all of them have been bottled by the Sarah. And
Sarah.
So it's been like a big talk in the bourbon community before, where like who's Sarah? But
do we know who Sarah is?
No.
Is she okay?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like Sarah
That's a good
Smile.
question.
It's a great song. It's a great song. Did I already tell you that story about that?
Yeah, but you should tell them.
Please share with the class.
First of all, before I do, Smooth Ambler, we did, was it Pure Scout? Is that what it's called?
I could have sworn that we did one on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember.
It was Pure Scout or whatever.
Old Scout.
Old Scout. We did Old Scout on here before.
That's
I
right.
brought it that one time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
see,
That was the other option.
I couldn't
but I like the name of
remember.
this better.
No, this is
Single
amazing.
barrel.
Yeah.
What does this go for a bottle? Did we talk about that yet? Sorry, I was like doing all social media
with,
stuff.
With tax, it was $39 and change, so $40.
That's not bad at all.
No, and it's smooth. I like it.
Ambler.
I'll be buying it again. If it were a shorter bottle, it'd be better, but it's not.
You know what this reminds me
Like
of?
the shape or less
The
with
shape, like if it were like a shorter wine.
They're all like this one though. I think like the wine
Yeah.
bottles.
Yeah, I don't like the bottle shape. It like in my opinion, but like that's just me.
I mean,
You know,
this
it has
could,
nothing to do
yeah.
with the inside.
They could, with that front, you know, obviously not with the ingredients and the proof or whatever, but like that looks like a true wine bottle just as it is with the elephant on it. You know what I mean? It's,
Yeah, it could
I will
be.
say that.
Could
Like-
be a bottle of wine.
Like a lot, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just got that wine label look. Also, not only the shape of the bottle, but
Yeah.
Like the black label with the gold and like some weird animal
it's-
on
yeah,
it.
exactly. They call it contradiction.
It's very aesthetically pleasing.
Contradiction Pinot Noir.
It's an elephant trying to roll a barrel
Dude.
while standing on it.
I think he's more trying to stand on it than roll it. I think the rolling is a byproduct of trying to balance on it.
I really
honestly.
never thought of the elephant's
Kind of like a
motivations.
unicycle, or you know.
Goodness gracious.
I'm just saying, pure physics. That elephant does not want to fall
I
down.
don't think they cared when they. I don't
The
think
elephants?
they're thinking about that.
Well, first of all, again, no elephants were harmed according to the bottle, which is good. Which is good. It's safety.
And in the
Animal
making of this
rights.
podcast, no elephants were harmed in the making of this podcast.
No.
Not
yeah,
yet.
not-
It's still early.
Yeah.
Not that either.
Feels like-
So the Sarah Smile story.
Here we go.
There we were. We were in the woods, actually at hockey. and we were cabrewing that weekend, and I'm sure everyone knows what cabrewing is. You don't? You're just playing along.
No, I'm not. I
serious?
really don't know what that term means. Please
Think about
me. No.
Think about it. You're in the woods. There's a river there. What would you think cabrewing is?
I don't know.
No. Damn it.
Just say
So
it.
you're canoeing with beer. That's all it is. That's all we like. You just have a bunch of beer
Wow,
and
that was a
drinks.
lead up to nothing.
Well, that's why I thought you were doing it. Anyways, so we had been drinking on the river all day. We had been sitting by the campfire drinking all night, and somehow it ended up with. So we had of the groups guys I play softball with. But I think Dominator was there. Everyone has nicknames. So Dominator was there, America was there, Slack was there, I was there.
What's your nickname? I'm sorry.
Huh?
What's your nickname?
Cigar Guy. It's not that good.
Elaborate.
Well, Dominator is our name for Chris, who was a former roommate, but then he was nicknamed Silent Bob because he had long hair at one point. So America usually comes up with the nicknames. You have Red Big, because they don't want to call him Big Red. He's obviously a ginger.
Obviously.
I mean, why else would you?
Is he big?
No.
What?
No, it's just Big Red.
But he's obviously.
It's not all obvious. Not all obvious.
All right.
But so we were there in the campfire, and people just started kind of peeling off, going to the tents or whatever, and we were listening to music. And at some point, I think it was because my friend Georgie actually was playing Sarah Smile in a bar one time, several times, like the whole night, just because he liked it. So I was, then Mock says, nickname's Big Sexy. So Kevin King, if he's tuned in tonight, Big Sexy is not a nickname. But so I had my iPhone and we were just playing the music because our Bluetooth speakers had died. And so it's just, I think at one time it was just Slack and I, hammered drunk in the middle of the woods. And so I was just like, I gotta go to bed. But I don't really recall climbing in the tent. I was told the next morning that I had let Sarah Smile by Hall & Oates, which is a great American treasure. It just kept on repeat. So you know how that song starts? It's like, I can't do it, but it's like this really slow, couple notes or whatever, and then it's just this really smooth. The whole vibe of the song is extremely kind of medium pace, smooth, all that stuff, and. There's a key change at some point. Great song. You guys check it out if you haven't heard of Hall & Oates. No? Yeah.
Do it,
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that, and you guys can't hear it on Facebook, but on the audio you might be able to hear it. So what happens is at the end of every time this thing dies off, and it's like 3-4 in the morning in the quiet of the woods, and apparently this thing is still just in my pocket in the tent playing Sarah Smile over and over again. And at some point, the people at the next campsite, because it's so quiet in the middle of the woods, so all they hear is this faint Hall & Oates song, and then when it ends, it starts off all over again with those notes. So at one point, so I guess Slack he passed out at the fire, and so they came over like, hey man, is that your guys' music? Can you guys turn that off? And he's kind of comes to, and he told me came to the side of the tent, just was like, boom, 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 Crane. Turn off the music. And so I don't even remember it, but apparently as soon as he said it, it was silent. I was reaching out, sorry man, I got it. But great song.
You're just asking to be murdered with that.
Well, I went up and apologized later, and they were younger, kids or whatever. They weren't trying to cause trouble or anything. I was like, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I just kind of passed out with Hall & Oates playing in my pocket.
They're like, I don't know who that is.
I'm sure it's happened to you so many times in your life. I mean, we've all been there. Classic Hall & Oates in the pocket story.
You were so lucky they weren't get off of my lawn.
No. How can you be mad? If we were blaring rap music or really loud rock music,
100%
it was just Hall & Oates just lulling you to sleep. I'm surprised they didn't sleep through it.
I used to go to sleep to System of a Down in high school.
All right.
That explains many
and
things.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. Well,
but only the melancholy of Melancholy and Infinite Sadness.
Great album.
Yeah, so.
So what do you think, Steve, now that you've tried it?
Yeah.
It's actually good. I was drinking Henry McKenna before this.
Yeah, and to go from Henry McKenna to this, it's a big difference.
It is. It does have a little bit of that sweetness. Definitely again, maybe it's just like I've been tasting it more with a lot of ones we've been trying here. But if you guys haven't heard, I'm a little stuffed up. But I get a little bit of that corn for sure, right in the kind of the back of my mouth, like right before it hits the throat and everything like that. There's definitely that corn taste.
It's in it, yeah.
But it's a sweet, almost like a syrupy type of a.
That's a good maple syrup.
Yeah.
That's a good viewpoint on that for sure. Tasting note, that's great.
Not a texture note. That would be
No,
very off-putting.
But it does have it has legs, like it's oily. And
I can get that in the I fucking hate the mouthfeel.
But that's what it is.
I know, but
that's exactly what it is.
The funny thing is the texture, because that's what texture is.
The mouthfeel.
That's exactly what it is.
The great thing about tonight is that we can actually accurately say that that's what she said.
Yeah.
You can.
Like
I'll give it to you. There you go.
Shit. I'll give it. That's what she said.
Oh my god.
There you go.
We started.
Whatever.
Yeah. I get it. Well, I did want to say, what this reminds me of? It reminds me of if you took Jack Daniels and proofed it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it tastes like.
Okay.
To me, because it's got the honey, the rich like molasses or like brown sugar, or like what you said, like syrup.
Syrupy. Yeah.
And that's what Jack Daniels tastes like to me, but it's super light. This isn't. I think it has great flavor. Jack Daniels gets light for me, but.
Well, like with this tends to like coat. You were talking about the oiliness, the I can still taste it even though I haven't taken a drink super recently. But with Jack, I like the second you swallow it, it's just like gone.
Yeah,
like,
clean finish is
done.
Yeah.
And I prefer this. I prefer to not have to constantly be sipping on it to taste what I'm drinking.
I'll say this about it. This will be my last note on this, is that, and it's obvious because that was the point behind it, but is to be contradicting of itself, and actually trying to decipher the notes out of the nose and stuff. It is a contradiction if you pay attention to the light, because it's a lighter whiskey, but it doesn't taste
lighter flavor, lighter. Okay.
Yeah, like it has, and we didn't talk about the floral notes in it, and I can't pick out any real floral notes.
Right.
But there's no citrus in it. But it reminds me of when we had New Riff on. And remember when I said that New Riff has that young, sharp, metallic-y taste to it?
You getting that?
I'm getting that, but not as much, not enough to say I don't like this.
See, I think it's more corn than that, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's a contradiction because it has these rich flavors, but then it has this weird back tone from the younger whiskey that's in it. I think.
That's deep.
I think, but if I had to guess,
yeah, what do we know? About Smooth Ambler. Do we know anything about Smooth Ambler spirits? Other than it's MTP.
Not really, but that's.
Where are they based out of again? Did we talk?
They're based out of West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, which is very cool because it's kind of put the state back on the map. Really, there's been a lot of people to go down there, and they've had massive releases, and there's single barrels that are much like the Boone County single barrels, are phenomenal. But those things go for, I think, Phil Davis, our good friend, the bourbon monster that made an appearance on the podcast, right. He picked one up in Maryland, and it was 120 something proof, I believe, and they wanted, I think, 170 for it. So. But Maryland's one of those states that isn't regulated by the actual state liquor agency. So they can do that. Whether that be the actual price of it, I don't know. But they can definitely get up there in price.
I like the whole effort of this thing. As far as, reading this again, hearing you guys talk about it, it is kind of cool that they're actually blending it. There aren't as many blends of bourbons that I know of. It's more, when you get into the
High West
Scotch
has done a good job.
That's where you get blends.
But it's not just, they're not just sourcing. I like the fact that it looks like they're actually, they're distilling some of their own, and then also doing that. So that is kind of cool.
I'm pleased with it. I remember like trying the first one again, like I said earlier, and I didn't really care for it. And that was actually like a higher proof.
This one, Contradiction?
Yeah, but their early releases were super, super expensive. They were 100 plus. I mean, it's interesting to see them proof it down. And I had this theory when I first saw this bottle where we've talked about a couple times where if you proof stuff down, so if you think about it, you get the barrels and you dump them, right?
Sure. And
then you have the raw product of bourbon, rye, or whatever the whiskey is. And then if you add water to it, think about it. If you have a big vat or tank, thousands and thousands of gallons, right?
Yeah.
If you add water to it to proof it down, you're probably adding thousands and thousands of gallons of water. Yeah. So you're getting more whiskey out of it, which would explain why the price difference and the proof difference. And why it's more abundant.
I like that because I think it makes it more accessible. I think accessible bourbon is like a huge deal.
Yeah.
I think it's accessible, tasty bourbon because there's some very accessible bourbons that are not meant to be savored.
Steve's got one right there right next to our computer that used to be everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like Eagle Rare, and the fact that we're in Ohio. Like if you go to Indiana, Eagle Rare is freaking everywhere.
Yeah, or you just jumped out of Kentucky.
Or that works too. But even you can't always find Eagle Rare in Kentucky either. Maybe at party stores.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
I mean, the Henry McKenna that I got tonight was it was last bottle on the shelf at the Kroger by me, at the State Liquor by me. But it was like Ryan Altizer, who's been chiming in later in the evenings, and he's the one that got me a couple bottles recently. He got Willet and stuff. But he's gotten me a few of them where he mentioned today that he got a Henry McKenna. I was like, yeah, man, that used to be everywhere. Like I'd see it like for a couple months straight, and I'd pick it up, and then now you can't find it. And then so what I'm looking today just for a sipper after what you were getting, Tanya, is that, this was on there, and I could have gotten a couple other things for around the $35, but I was like, you know what, no, I do know I like Henry McKenna. I know I can't always get it. It's something that we'll probably all dip into after, a little while here that, I know everyone likes it, but it's frustrating to see that.
Yeah.
And this one, the Henry McKenna, have we done it featured?
Yeah, once.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, we haven't. We did it on a Whiskey Wednesday, and we've posted about it, but...
yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing about this one. I do think this one, it says aged 10 years, and then it's 100 proof, so it actually sneaks up on you, because I think it drinks very, very well.
Up until last year, Henry McKenna was the oldest bottled and bond bourbon that you could get, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. But for $35, you can get something that they say is aged 10 years in a single barrel.
Yeah.
It's pretty tasty.
Easy.
Yeah, very good.
Like I said, accessible, but that's why whenever I was trying to figure out something to bring here, I was like, well, what have you not featured and what's accessible? Because accessibility is a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
Like, what can you run to Kroger and be like, oh, I'd like to try that, and it's not like $100 a bottle,
Well, we've talked about that too, where we have things on the podcast where either someone brings it in, or like Dustin brought in that single barrel Knob Creek from like Cleveland Bourbon Club. Like no one else is going to get that. Like that was just for that club.
Right.
But we did mention the fact that you could go get Knob Creek single barrel, and technically speaking, each one of those bottles will probably taste differently.
Yeah.
So that's why it's single barrel.
Well, it's interesting. Before we move on from the whiskey, you have you see that comment from Mock.
Yeah.
So Mock, he says, used to like to drink Widow Jane, which you guys actually drank on the episode when I was in the DR. And he said, but when I went to the distillery in Brooklyn, found that they were sourced in Indiana. Is that MGP also?
Yes.
So it soured me on them rather get one that distills and ages in one place. That's interesting because a lot of the distilleries or a lot of the whiskeys are doing that. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
But that's what I like about the Smooth Ambler, because to Mark's point, it's interesting because the fact that they do, I guess, distill some of their own and they actually are blending it. So I don't know if it's just part of their product line or the fact that they can't distill enough on their own to make the, so they started blending them to almost like, I guess, accompany their production levels of what they're trying to do. So, but that's a good point. I mean, and Mark's from the New York area, so that's where it's, you kind of want to go to a local distillery and see the craftsmanship there as opposed to sourcing it out and then just bottling it or whatever.
Yeah,
I get the purist side of it.
Yeah, we talked about it when he was in town, and he must have went there since he was in town. And
Might have.
But the funny part is, and I don't want to spend too much time on the whiskey, but the fact that I met, or not met, but when I went down and saw our friend Matt Stiles down in Kentucky, he was explaining to me, we were talking all about whiskey obviously, but he was explaining to me how he went to a distillery, and I don't want to name it just because I want to keep it whatever in the realm of the whiskey. No one get mad at me, but
no, lay it out there. I want to see people get mad at you.
No, there was Robbie Crow, and we were talking, and he explained to me that there was a distillery that he was working at down there, and then visited, and when he was in the back room, he saw like a few barrels that had Widow Jane all over them, and it's like, so you're distilling stuff for Widow Jane now. Wow. Like, so it's interesting to see a lot of these distilleries come together, and we don't think of it as consumers as them coming together, but a lot of it's just like when we talked about like the fire at Heaven Hill. When that happened in '96, all the distilleries came together and they were distilling for Heaven Hill. They were giving them barrels. They were storing stuff for them that they had, and it's interesting to think about it in that light. And but as consumers, again, like we don't think of it. It's like, well, you tell us this great story, and then we get the product and we're all about it, and we fell in love with the idea of it, and then we find out that you didn't really make it.
Yeah, I could be way more into the whole like collaborative, like something happened and then we all came together as a community of bourbon lovers and just knocked it out of the park. Like I'm down with that. Like I don't care. As long as the end product that I'm drinking in my glass is delicious. Like honestly,
good whiskey's good whiskey.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like I'm not falling in love with the story that you told me. I'm falling in love with what's in my glass. So
yeah, I mean, so like Mark's on there again saying, maybe I'm a purist, but rather give my business to those that do it all. I get, like I said, I love that, and I maybe say like that's maybe where you really point a lot of your business, especially when you're trying to support people around you.
Yeah.
But I will say, Mark, I mean, like it's the same thing like with the BS stuff. It's like we're not growing in tobacco, we're not rolling it. Basically, we had our influence in that. The blending process as far as what we wanted to do, what we wanted to put our name on, and I think that's maybe where some of these that will, if you support some of that stuff, like these guys like Widow Jane. I get what you're saying, Mark. You're not wrong. I'm just saying that at some point maybe throw some business their way, because who knows if their business plan is to possibly to grow that side of it, but they don't have the resources to do so. So they're getting into it. They're perfecting their art form as far as that goes, and then they can actually expand their own personal thing. Maybe they're getting whatever it is, investing into their own future. But no, I mean I totally get that. I mean that's
normally always the case though. If you look at these distilleries, even Boone County's doing it now, where they've been getting these source barrels and they bought them in bulk, right?
Yeah.
And now they're something came out probably a couple months ago that they were actually going to stop with their regular bottling line for 12 years because their stuff is coming to age. I mean, think about like how old Willet is, and they were doing that. So, and now they're distilling their own stuff. So it's like, I think we don't know for sure. Like we're not experts on here. I'm not an expert, but I think that is always part of the business plan. And that's why people outsource. And there's a huge, I could talk about this for hours, but yeah. I mean, that's a massive discussion in the bourbon industry.
We could probably do, I think that's a good idea for a podcast, is actually doing some of the stuff that is sourced out or blended versus some of the ones that are more crafted all in place, like Mark's saying, as far as like the purist as far as that goes. It's something we got coming up, but.
Well, it's a shop local mentality, right?
Shop local, yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I'm down. I like to shop local when I can, but at the end of the day, you need what you need. You want what you want. So.
Well, and I'm kind of in the middle of it. I'll try that. I'll try to shop local, but I mean, there's some local, like Ohio bourbons. We haven't done many, if any, on the actual podcast. I don't think, but it's like some of the ones that we've tried in the past when Jake and I were doing Whiskey Wednesdays for like the 6 months to a year before we started doing the podcast.
We tried that Cleveland stuff the first time.
Oh, we did Cleveland stuff.
But those were flavored. Those were flavored whiskeys. They weren't.
But there was that one, you went to the distillery down in the Dayton area. Springfield Day. And that was the one. I bought a bottle for $50.
Holy crap, that stuff was crazy.
It was pure corn. It was pure corn.
It was literally, I mean, if you could imagine what it tasted like.
Liquid Fritos.
No. If you could imagine what it tasted like when someone brought corn off the Mayflower and distilled something.
Oh wow, you all are selling this. Like, make it.
You know what I mean?
So good.
You know, this distillery is freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
The distillery is awesome.
So shop local, but if you don't like it, you don't have to keep shopping local.
Right. Like try it. Throw your
Andy's
money.
number 5.
Andy's number 5. What was the
It
distillery
had a
called?
sweet, I don't know, but it had a sweet, what was it called?
It was Indian Creek.
Indian Creek, that's what it was.
Which I want to try some of the other stuff. That one, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say, I mean, it was $50 bottle. We did it on Whiskey Wednesday. I was treating that night, and that was the first bottle. We were about, if you can see it on the podcast, on the video. I mean, we're like not even halfway through the bottle, and like Jake was ready to leave. I was like, yeah, so you want to just take this for your bar then? That doesn't normally happen.
That never happens. That was the only time that happened.
And it wasn't that they make a bad product. Let me call it like being in the cigar industry. It's like, it's not that you made a bad cigar necessarily. It was just like, nope, not for me. Like I didn't die.
Your palate was not accustomed to the Mayflower corn.
No one's accustomed to it. It's just
I think it was a very specific, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that'll listen to this or watch it that they might actually like Andy's number 5. I will say, I'm gonna say this, I haven't seen it as much on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because everyone's snatching it up. I don't think so.
They probably ran out, man. They only have one still, and I think two, and it was probably like 100 gallons.
They have the oldest still existing.
This is our studio audience, everyone.
Yes.
They have the oldest still existing in the U.S.
So again, there's a lot of history there.
My
There's shopping
Valentine.
local.
My Valentine.
Your Valentine.
Your
Valentine's
Valentine.
Day.
My Valentine.
Bingo. No, but I mean, again, and if anyone out there is listening to
this,
well, just the thing about Indian Creek. If you're out there, you have some affiliation with that. We don't want to talk. We're not talking bad about the distillery or your products. It's just it's not something that we really enjoyed, and we'd love to try more of the other stuff. And that's one of the ones that it would be interesting to see if we could be, in a sense, converted, if you will, if we went down to the distillery together and we do like some of that.
See, and that's why I want you, Steve, to go down there, because it's funny where I didn't tell him this, but as soon as when we went to Four Roses, he was like, it never tasted like this before. It always tastes.
I wasn't as into it either.
It always tastes better at the distillery.
100%.
Always.
As you're sitting at their bar after you've walked their campus, like, oh.
We went down there and it was a beautiful day. We took we spent 8 hours on the road.
Yeah,
it was just a one-day trip. We were smoking cigars.
Yeah.
But that was a great trip. But it's funny. I would like to see it if Steve and I, or we all went down to Indian Creek and Springfield, Ohio, and if it would change your mind, maybe. But the reason why I liked it was because it was just interesting. Mm-hmm. I liked the authenticity of the flavor, and that's why I was able to describe it as if you got up the Mayflower and distilled it. I mean, that's what it tasted like.
It's very
really
American.
Great. Yeah, it is. But
I'm actually trying to message back and forth. It's trying to multitask. We mentioned Hutch is going down to Cuba.
Yeah.
And he's going with guys that have been down several times, and it's great. He's like, odd question. Did you take anything other than tennis shoes to Cuba? If he just texted me that, and I wasn't recording a podcast, I would have had so many smart ass things to say back. Be like, nope, just tennis shoes.
See, and I'm disappointed in you for not having smart ass things to say back.
I just said flip flops around the house, but as I'm writing that and I'm talking about it now, it's like I'm like, hey, I'm recording the podcast, but try to respond.
And it's the fact that we're 45 minutes in, and we've only talked about whiskey, pretty much.
What was Mark's follow-up here? Speaking of Hutch. So Hutch went out there. He was just texting me. As for local whiskeys, Mark says, did you guys get to try the bourbons I sent back with Andy? We're lucky in New York to have 20 distilleries. I don't know what that means. Just in Brooklyn, so it's easy for me to shop local. We did actually, and I did enjoy those. They had some cool marketing too. Like one of them looked like an old medicine bottle.
Ooh.
It was like this little guy. I think it was like a $3.75 or whatever.
Glad you got to try them.
Yeah, no, I am too. I
God damn, when the hell was this?
You might have been there. I don't know.
He wasn't there.
I gave you a pin.
A pin?
You got a pin? One of the lapel pins. Or
No,
if you
yeah.
haven't, it's at the shop for you.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's the exact same
I,
as tasting.
yeah, I don't get
bourbon.
anything.
Yeah.
I was the last one to get in line with Duty Cigar. I haven't got to taste any whiskey, but I worked there. You don't. Still love you, but I worked there. Just saying.
The best.
All right, that's a great point to say.
We're saving the podcast for the live viewers, but please share it, please like it, and yeah, you ready?
You finish your cry burger real quick.
Dude, I mean,
You're wham.
it's my wheelhouse, and I didn't get any whiskey at all. Can we bring this shit in?
No, I was gonna say, can we stay on task here for
Oh
our
yeah,
Facebook
you're
Live?
right.
Wait a minute.
And cigars.
And you're good. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
So we're doing the Punch Grand Puro, which I think actually does go all right with it. It's definitely a bolder cigar, I think, than what we're drinking as far as that. Mark says, "Sorry, Jake, squeaky wheel gets the oil."
It's true.
It matters if he went high voice. Just because he went high voice, is that why we're doing
it's
that?
just.
No, he's saying
Like a squeaky, like a high voice.
Can I add in one
saying
thing
if you
too?
complain
Can I
more.
add in one thing too? I was the first person to greet Mark into the Tinder Box.
In all fairness, though, you literally, this is the funny part about that. So Mark, again, from New York, he does that, or Jake's like, I'm sorry, what's your name? I didn't catch your name. Mock. And he's like, oh, Mock? I mean, not knowing him all that well, like, he just, like, completely just, like...
I went southy like New York, straight.
Yeah, it was just like, but he corrected me, like, he caught himself that he was like, oh, Mock? I mean, Mark. Oh.
That was great.
Oh, okay. And then, like, a few hours later, like, everyone was best friends, but it was really funny because, yeah, I could see your face, like, go almost, like, not completely, like...
Oh, I was
like,
white, man. I just went flushed.
You're like, oh, fuck, I said... I hope you don't think I'm making fun of him. And I don't know.
I am now because we're cool.
Yeah, you're cool
And you didn't
now.
give me any whiskey, so it's okay.
No, that's untouched.
I did like the Line of Duty cigar, though. That was
Yeah,
really
they're
good.
good. We're looking at bringing them on
Very
here in the spring. So as soon as we get through the Smoking 10 event, there's going to be a lot. We have to order like basically, I mean, at least 4,000 to 5,000 cigars for the 10 event. So it's not really good for our first quarter. But
And it has to get here in a month.
oh, we'll get the cigars, but
That's shipping, though.
so. We're doing the Punch Grand Puro Nicaragua. So there's a couple things about this cigar. I really like this cigar. It's a newer one in the last couple years from them. They've already rebranded it. So General Cigars, who puts this out, is they own the rights and manufacture Punch cigars that are not Cuban Punch. So they're two different entities there. But that's the history there as far as Punch. They've been around for ages in Cuba. But then they've also been around, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask. Have we ever talked about the fact or the difference between the Cuban brands and the American brands that are named the same?
The obvious difference is that, Cuban ones are all Cuban tobacco.
Yeah.
And owned by Habanos SA.
But how are they able to do that? I mean, is it just because of the different countries, or like what is
Yeah, I think it is. Mainly it's the fact that, when all that happened, basically with part of the embargo and everything else, it's the name, like the actual trademarks and everything else within the country of the U.S.
Okay.
So, and elsewhere. So you're not really like, now there is, and I don't know all of the details of it, and so if anyone out there knows the details, please feel free to chime in, but that's a good topic if we look into it. But there are some, I want to say, especially with Altadis, there's some parent companies that actually have some naming rights between the two of them. So if they ever became legal, you'd have to see some differentiating aspects.
The families in Cuba.
Which,
Maybe they would just say Cuban.
well,
No.
yeah, so if you guys noticed, and that you had mentioned earlier, so for example, like the Punch, right? So this says 1840. That is not the American Honduras that I know of brand, right? So it's mostly out of Honduras. 1840, I'd imagine, is the Cuban age. So
Do you think that would have to come off the
I don't know if that come off. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be some sort of merger there, but if you notice, and that's what's interesting, this is already the second band
Yeah.
for the Punch. Gran Puro.
But this looks like the punch that's on Cuban.
No, the previous labels did.
Oh, okay.
With the circle, with the classic punch, and then you had like punch clowns were all part of that and everything. But as far as this goes, yeah.
Do you think that they're preparing for that? Like the embargo to be lifted?
I think if you're looking at like conspiracy theories,
Not conspiracy.
no, I mean I think it is a little bit. I mean that's why I think a lot of so General has gone the way of, and who knows what they know. I haven't seen as much like Montecristo's from Altadis. That's what we have for our second cigar from our sponsor.
Yeah.
Very similar branding. Now they've added more to it, but I mean that's the Montecristo as far as the artwork and everything else. So Punch, Partagas, they've changed a great deal. Cohiba's always been different as far as what they have on there, and that's one of the biggest naming rights thing that I understand is going on 20 years as far as legal action that's been behind the scenes. That Cohiba from Habanos SA, and then with General or at the parent company. I think there's been something going on there because of the preparation over the years. That's like Cohiba was originally, from my understanding, was like what Fidel had rolled for him, and then it became a brand. But it was actually a brand here, mainstream for sale, before it was actually a Cuban brand for sale.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's that.
So, but I think so what I think they're doing here is that they're rebranding it. So Partagas did a major revamp on their bands as well recently to go away from that typical Cuban side of things. So I will say with this one, so it's a Nicaraguan filler, Nicaraguan binder, and then a Connecticut broadleaf. So there's U.S. tobacco wrapping this cigar. I like that typical from a treetop level. I like that blend as far as Connecticut broadleaf over all Nicaraguan tobacco. What I don't like about this, and I guess I think they're getting a little, aggressive with the fact.
I'm sorry. The true ambiance of this podcast is
on a mouse.
Unmatched. Unmatched.
It's amazing.
Did you step on a mouse, or was that like a little fart?
That was the cord.
Oh.
That's
He
what they all
popped
say.
it and it still made noise going back in. It's crazy.
All right.
Go ahead.
He's a little gassy.
Yeah.
He's a little gassy.
Yeah. The bottle's empty, so it's okay.
So the original Gran Puro has been around for quite some time. I was just looking this up. The original Gran Puro has been around since. Let me look here. No, actually, that's not the Rare Corojo is really one of the ones I like. That's a limited release. That's been around since 2001, so we're going back a ways with that. But the Gran Puro, the original Gran Puro, which is something that we smoked when Jonathan and Laurel were here in the garage.
I like that band better.
Yeah, so we're looking at the original band, but the Gran Puro, not this one, not the original band, but the Gran Puro, that was the Honduran Puro, so it was a true Puro as far as that goes. I really like that cigar. I really do. We smoked some. They let us have some. So Jonathan and Laurel will be here representing Macanudo at the 10 event, which I'm looking forward to having both of them back in Columbus. But I think when you do like Gran Puro Nicaragua, just from the name, I would say it's all Nicaraguan tobacco.
You would think.
You would think. So that's where I don't really care for, and that's just my personal opinion.
It's a contradiction.
It's a contradiction. It's like an elephant on a barrel. But I would say that you don't need to necessarily call it a Gran Puro as a line extension when you completely, like it is out of a Honduran factory that they do own, to my knowledge, but you're doing something where it's like, it's not a Gran Puro, and you're making it in Honduras, and it has no Honduran tobacco, so I appreciate that they've branched out, and who knows, so when a typical smaller company or blender, they're working on, from my understanding, like 30, 40, however many blends, you know what I mean? And so when you have the bigger companies like Altadis, like General, the ones that have multiple labels as far as brand names, that I refuse, and even my father, I've heard, and I'm not going to source that, but it's like certain blends that do really well, they'll either put a little less age on and they'll put it out under one of their other brands. So they're usually utilizing basically more or less similar, or they'll tweak it a little bit to put another brand on it. But so I don't know if this was something that they had put out before that they wanted to get out.
It's kind of like the batches of like the smooth amber of what I was speaking of, the proof and the...
Yeah.
It seems like a hoof to tail kind of situation where they have all this product and they they want to get it out to the population. So
Yeah.
And they can get it at different price points. So if you don't put as much age on, you don't have as much sitting, as far as sitting time. I can see also, this is a really easy way that not many people explain it, but for example, you have your premium line. For example, like, I'll just say like Cohiba, and then you have Partagas, right? So I don't see really a problem with it from a business standpoint when they're all owned by the same company. That you do have your premium line, you do have your more everyday ones, and yes, there's like a big substantial difference in price. But here's how I could justify it. Say it is the exact same tobacco, but one, you have more age on the more expensive one, so there's more cost involved there, and hopefully maybe you've had an opportunity to experiment on the age of it, that this is when you think that the blend tastes best,
Right.
or you roll it at this age and then you let it sit for a year or so.
Yeah.
Once it's been rolled, there's more cost involved there and more cash flow. And then on top of that, the other way I think you can justify a higher price that no one typically talks about is that you have your higher end rollers rolling the, say, and this is not, I'm not calling them out, but it's like a Cohiba is rolled by a higher level roller than, say, a Partagas of the same Vitola.
Yeah.
And therefore you're going to have more consistency, hopefully, in a more expensive product. You're going to have a little bit smoother or more of a refined taste of what you're going for with some of these blends, as opposed to something that's half the price, that's rolled by someone that's a lower roller level, and also you have a little less age on the tobacco. Because if that's the case, then you're not going to necessarily have this. You pay this person a little bit more because they're more experienced. You pay more to have this tobacco there. And then the end product, you're also tearing down your brands, if you will. If they all cost the same, you can't justify a high price tag if like your Cohibas cost the same as your Partagas, or your premium line from, say, Drew Estate or My Father, your premium lines cost the same as this. You do have to price structure that.
Yeah.
But people, like, when you get down to that blog level, you get down to that everyday smoker that are just pissed off, like, well, I'm going to smoke this, that's way too overpriced, or I only smoke this because it's this price. I don't think you're understanding the business aspect of what we're doing here.
Now, you said Vitola. Is that
shape?
The shape.
Yeah, I went over that on Monday.
Yeah.
On the Beyond the BS, but the Vitola is the shape, or the size of shape.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to figure out if these big cigar, do you just say companies? Like, what are the farms? Like, the tobacco farms, manufacturers?
Well, going back to what Mark was saying, that, as far as the distilleries, you have some of these companies that will grow, roll, and sell their everything from start to finish.
Like AJ Fernandez. Like
AJ does a lot of it. Aganor Salif does a lot of that. They sell more tobacco than what they actually roll with. Padron does most of their stuff with all their own tobacco. My Father. Then you have those hybrids, kind of what we're talking, like with Smooth Ambler. That's a great example. Where, for example, like some of the companies that have farms, what they'll do is like they're in the process of growing things. So some of their tobacco goes into filler and everything else. They'll make their money by selling some of the stuff they don't want. But there's some cigars where it's like, it's their wrapper leaf, and that's their prize aspect of that blend, is that they bought this tobacco, but this is a wrapper leaf that so and so picked off of this lot on their farm.
Are there any restrictions of what you can call things in the tobacco world, like in America? You know how, like, you have like single barrel, small batch not really, but
bourbon,
single
whiskey.
barrel, bourbon, whiskey. Is there anything, like, how can they say it's a Grand Puro when it's really not a Puro Nicaragua?
You can call it whatever you want.
Really?
Yeah,
There's
you
no
call
restrictions on whatever you call it?
No, there's nothing that, again, and maybe that's, I don't want to really dive down that hole right now, but if the FDA did truly understand the industry and they got into it, they could call it that you're false advertising of what you're dealing with. It's 100% tobacco, but based on the name, if there's an agreed upon name of Puro,
Right.
a true Puro is all, from my understanding, a true Puro is not only from the same country, it's from the same region, same farm, and not, it's not necessarily like the entire thing is the same tobacco coming off the same plant, but it is necessarily, like, it's not just all Honduran tobacco. It's like you really dial it back down to that it's all coming from the same place.
Yeah. See, to bounce off what you said, I definitely am okay with tiered pricing. Like, as a consumer, like, I was a makeup artist for 5 years.
Okay.
So the majority of makeup companies are owned by like Maybelline, owns like higher end brands, right?
Yeah.
So like the higher end brands are more consistent. They're, whatever. So like with cigars, the consistency is going to be a factor in whether I'm purchasing it or not. Because if I buy one stick and it's amazing, and then I buy another and it's bullshit, then I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go with that. I'm just not. Like that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone in that. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's a one-off. Like I'm okay with a one-off. Like it happens.
Yeah.
But
when it's every other.
It's every other. No, I'm not into that, and I'm not into false labeling. Like if it's not what you say it is, then give it a different name. Like you can make up a name, and I wouldn't know the fucking difference.
That's actually,
if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's my problem with Gran Puro Nicaragua because I really like the cigar.
Yeah.
And I'm not offended by it, like at my core from principles, but it's
Right.
like, dude, you should have called this. Like, just call it the Punch Nicaragua. Like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to call it that. You just came out with the Punch Diablo that AJ Fernandez made, but AJ's not really on the band anywhere. He's just like the inside of the box. And you're like, all right, I get it. Like he's blending for everyone, but you know what I mean. Like you don't have to call it like the H. Upman Nicaragua. You know what I mean? That says AJ Fernandez. We call it the H. Upman by AJ Fernandez. It actually is called Nicaragua. Call it a Punch Nicaragua
or Grand Nicaragua. Like
whatever.
if you wanted, well, I figured like the marketing team was like, let's add Grand in there to make it prestigious.
I think
exceptional.
Exceptional
Nicaragua.
Yeah, I think the mistake is. I think the mistake is that you're trying to do a brand extension on something that had success, like the Gran Puro.
Yeah.
And then you're putting something else out. So you're trying to grab people, even though it's a totally different smoke.
Yeah.
That you're grabbing people from the Gran Puro line that may not smoke other punches, but they'll give this a shot and they'll like it. So they're going to be like, oh, this is great. Not good diving into it any further than that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it, Tanya?
Well, so paired, I think it's great if I dip it because it gives me like the
dip
like the end of my cigar into my whiskey.
Just the tip.
Just
wow.
the tip, as you do.
I've never seen anyone do that.
Yeah. Actually, one of the guys at the shop, he told me to do it, and I was like, whatever, sure, why not? And then I did, and it gives you a lot of the flavor of the whiskey, and then it also mellows out. So like this is a pretty like strong cigar comparatively to the whiskey, right?
I agree.
Saying that?
I agree.
That mellows it a bit, so it blends the two, in my opinion.
You're infusing your own cigar.
I mean, a little.
See, I just take a sip and then go straight for a draw.
Yeah, but if I don't want to hold my glass, like, and I want an
We already covered the fact that you're lazy.
Like,
I
who I am.
envision you on vacation, like just being fed grapes and like
fans.
Well, the fucking dream
just
right there,
big
man.
buff dudes, just
Obviously.
doing it. Yeah, obviously.
They would have to have a really good upper body.
Just
Listen,
Just
we're talking about Valentine's
if this podcast would go the way that Tanya wanted it, it would have been her sitting where Jake is, and then there's just
Steve.
Jake and I, like on the sides, just fanning you.
Yeah.
Well, tonight,
not tonight,
eaters.
but like maybe.
And there's a chocolate fountain and strawberries.
I mean, I brought cake.
I was gonna say you haven't brought up.
She brought cake.
Yeah.
I mean,
So for the rest of you guys,
I didn't try any cake before we started the podcast.
Standard has been.
I'm still upset
that's
about that.
not my fault.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Like-
All right.
Jake, what do you think of this cigar?
I wanted to ask. So it's the same cigar, just different
question
band?
with a question. It's the same cigar as what you saw on the screen
Really?
here. Yeah.
Because
They rebranded it. So
yeah, but when I first tried the cigar, I loved it, and now I don't like it.
So I like the spice.
Well, you weren't
that's in
drinking
it.
this though.
I wasn't drinking it, so maybe it has something to do with it.
I like the spice that's in it. Like
Yeah.
I retrohaled just now.
Yeah.
And I got quite a bit of spice. I tend to like spicier cigars. It's just what I tend to prefer.
There's a spice and pepper to it.
Yeah, there's a bit of pepper, and I like that. I don't mind. I don't mind that it's mislabeled, although it is. I don't mind that.
You're wrong.
So much. Because like once I take the
I got
band,
a text from Jonathan later. He's like, "What the fuck did you say?" on
Once-
the
Yeah,
podcast?"
exactly.
It's like,
once I
everyone's complaining. We're getting all sorts of emails and like Facebook comments and all this shit on our social media that like we fucked up with the.
At least we have influence, Steve.
I mean,
No, I'd take it. I take that as a good podcast.
Yes.
yeah, but once you take the band off, right? Like once you get past that, like I think it's a solid smoke. Like the draw on it's smooth. It has a good flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, it pairs well. It pairs well with the lighter whiskey. I think it would pair well with something more robust. I mean, I think it's nice.
See, I think
Try
that'd be
this
a little
next.
bit too much.
I will.
Yeah.
You know I have a problem with like broadleaf. Like I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you and then Brian, the owner of Tinder Box, like I just felt like I've known him for a long time. I've worked for him for 6 years, and it was like the last month and a half, like so, like 6 to 8 weeks ago, I found out he's like, yeah, I'm not a big broadleaf guy. I was like, what are you talking about? Like you framed most of the palettes in the last several years, you know, last 20 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys love broadleafs. Yeah, I just don't really care for it a whole lot. I'm like, okay.
No, he's helping.
And you don't like it either?
I have a problem with it. Now, is a Ramon Oleone a broadleaf?
No.
See, what do you have a problem? Like, can you put your finger on what the problem is?
It's like a young whiskey that I talk like it's sharp. Oh. It's a sharp taste. I don't think it's flavorful, although that it is a full flavor cigar. Yeah. I don't think it's a full, or it's very flavorful and complex. I guess that's my problem. Where
that's the whole cigar. I don't think it's the wrapper only though on that.
I know, but I'm just thinking about the consistency because every time that I smoke, every time we bring a cigar on this podcast that's a broadleaf of any kind, I have a problem with it. And I'm gonna
keep picking those out.
Well, yeah.
Oh, Jake, you like it? I'm gonna test. I'm not gonna say it. I'm like, Jake, what do you think about it? Like, I really like it. Fuck you. It's broadleaf.
Got him. You don't know what you like.
But the problem is, I can normally tell what a broadleaf.
You stupid person.
It's just sharp to me. Like Okay, I'll say this. I've always liked the construction on these. I've never had a bad cigar with it where it blows up or anything.
Right.
It cracks. These cigars are constructed beautifully. They're a great branding. I don't know why they rebranded it really, but
well, again, this is actually a consistent band with that
the gold and the red and
no, what I just mentioned prior was the Punch Diablo by AJ. It was the first one that came out with a really different band. I was like, well, that's interesting. All of a sudden, we started getting new boxes. The boxes were different.
Yeah.
Still more classic looking boxes.
Yeah.
They changed it, but it's classic. It has the bright colors. But then you open it up and these are sitting inside. You're like, well, that's. I don't know if you redid the boxes first and then you're like, well, hang on, we have more boxes now. Actually, I don't know what they're doing. That's a good question, actually, though. For if you guys are in the area and you're going to be at the tent event, ask Jonathan. Even though we're smoking, or we're smoking Macanudos that night from them. But it's a great question for a rep to say. So, what is the strategy there?
Yeah.
Is this truly full body? You think, or do you think it's like mid full?
I think. Well, go ahead.
I would say I think it's mid full because I've had some full bodied cigars that like kind of try to knock me on my ass, and it's great.
Yeah.
I love it, but like this doesn't do that. Like,
I wouldn't say it's like a Lajero bomb, like a Lajero drip, like a nicotine drip, but I mean it's definitely full flavored. Yes, I would say that. It's kind of like,
You're always going to have a full flavor with a broadleaf, though.
Yeah.
Typically, if you blend it with Nicaraguan tobacco, and if you're putting some Lajero, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. Where when they say Nicaraguan filler and binder, I don't know where it's coming from.
The Gran Llave by AJ Fernandez, that's not a broadleaf either, right?
I don't believe it's a broadleaf. No.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure, I'm trying to find one that I've smoked.
The La Dueña was one that I was going to do tonight.
Is that a broadleaf?
Yeah.
See? Well, now we found it. I love the
That's got
Dueña.
that broadleaf when I think of it. When I think of a good broadleaf cigar.
Such a great
It's got this almost sweetness to it. But that La Dueña, you can see the crystallization on the wrapper. We're nerding out right now.
Retrohaled this?
I can't retrohale.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. If you retrohale, there is a definite sweetness to it.
Yeah.
Like at the back of your tongue, like it's there.
I think it's just an initial puff where it reminds me of when I first started smoking pipe, where it just scorches me. Yeah, and that's all I get out of this cigar. And that's not to say it's a bad cigar. I think our viewers and listeners should try it and see what you think. But that's what I get out of it, and that's what I always get out of broadleaf, and that's what I mean when I say bitter or
maybe you're
sharp.
just dehydrated.
Well, maybe that's it.
I mean, whenever I took my first I got that, and then I took a drink of water, and then it completely changed.
It does actually leave a little bit of dryness on the tongue.
Yeah, so if you have something to drink with it, I think that might
flavor.
mediate that.
It's just sharp and bitter, but it's a good smoke, good draw, good construction. And that's what I mean. That's why I asked about the fact that did they change the blend at all?
No, not that I know. No, I don't think so.
And it's because when we first got this in the box, probably a year ago, with the weird looking band, it was like lime green and dark blue.
It's
and
like
red.
a neon looking punch band.
And it definitely stands out. And then I tried it and I was like, this is awesome. I really like this cigar. It's like $7-8. It's awesome. I really like it. And then we tried it again and I'm like, and that just goes to show that, your profile, your flavor profiles change constantly.
Oh yeah, I mean, like for me, my since I started regularly smoking cigars, my flavor profile has just completely changed.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Steve said that would happen with me when I first started coming into the cigar or into the Tinder Box.
Yeah.
And then when I started working, I would start I wanted to smoke like all these like dark cigars, the big ones, the 60 ring gauge, and blah 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 blah. And now I stick with the BS Gold. I stick with.
And you were a big BS Silver guy for a while.
I love the BS Silver, the big one.
I love the BS Silver. It is hands down one of my favorite cigars because it has a super peppery note on it, and
You like that?
Yeah, I love it.
You're gonna like the 10 man.
The BS Silver is like smoking air.
I've been sitting on this project for a while.
I know, and Steve.
I am like, Steve knows a secret, and I'm like,
Well, you didn't get drunk, but we were tipsy like a few weeks ago.
Did I tell you about it completely?
No, I told you not to.
Alright, good.
And now,
surprises.
Steve was like, he's like, man, I really want to tell you. And I'm like, can you
There's
not?
four people. Well,
I mean, speaking of Valentine's Day, surprises.
We're still a month off.
no,
we still gotta wait.
I know.
We still gotta wait.
And I'm okay with
Yeah.
that. I'm okay with the late satisfaction because when I get to the 10 event and it blows my fucking mind, I am pumped for it.
No, I'm excited
Don't
about the
get too
project.
excited because when you get let down.
No. Wow.
That's how you live your life.
You are.
No,
you are
I'm just being real.
You
I'm
are
just being
selling
real.
it, man.
No, I'm not, actually.
Look at you go.
So the project is obviously a cigar, but I'm hoping that there's two aspects of it, and you guys will all know what it is when it hits. But why I'm really excited about it and excited to share it with everyone and someone in particular. But there are, as far as I know, besides people that are actually rolling it, there's five people that I know about it, including myself.
In the world.
Whoa.
In the world.
Whoa,
Right.
that sounds like a real villain speach there, and I'm down.
Single batch.
It's a limited edition.
Oh,
As of now. Wanted to comment on the broadleaf. So I still love having Mark on. There's more people listening than Mark, but he's definitely being vocal here, which is great. There are a couple things there. So LFD does that too, and they're still family owned. That's when we were talking about growing all their own. Yeah. I will say that's what gets you into trouble, however, is because LFD, they do source out some of their wrapper leaf. The reason that I've been told recently, and I don't want to get in trouble in the industry, but the fact that I've been told this is that, and who knows if it's the truth, I don't know exactly, but the wrapper leaf on a lot of the Maduro stuff, like the DLs, on the chisels, on some of the stuff, they were outsourcing, and so because they couldn't produce it,
those chisels.
everyone loves
the chapter ones.
Well, yeah, I'm
The
talking
black
about
label.
I don't like it.
I'm talking about the Maduro
Like
DLs.
The DLs.
The Maduro DLs, from my understanding, is that they, and I'm not trying to start a rumor, this is actually what I was told from a reliable source, is that they were outsourcing it. Last year we had a problem with it, over 12 months ago, that we couldn't get the cigars in, and they were like, they were basically like kind of, feeding out whatever reason it was. They were just so popular, they want to sell their stuff. They didn't have it again this year, so it was about 12 months later. The person the farms that they were getting these wrapper leaf from, they just couldn't they couldn't keep up, and then on top of that they were having some crop issues. Yeah. So now they're trying to basically duplicate, which, and I don't want to deter anyone from trying the DL700s or any of the double arrow stuff, the Maduros, but they are, and I will say I trust LFD that they will not release a cigar they're not happy with. Yeah. But if your source or if your farm has bad crop years, you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to change things up again. And these guys are so talented. The people in the industry are so talented that, you talk about like the stories about Espinosa, the fact that, he had to deconstruct and then reconstruct all the 601 blends at some point. People are like, oh, these aren't the same as they used to be. You know what? They're not. But that is something that you can't really hold against a company that is trying to do that.
Well, and that's the struggle with consumables, I think. Especially like whiskey, cigars. Like, if you have a bad crop year, it's gonna change things, and it has to. It's like we move frequently toward different tastes, and nothing is ever gonna be the same year to year. So Brad, he gave me an añejo from his locker,
Brad Grimsley,
right?
who's been on the podcast,
right? Exactly, Brad Grimsley. He gave me an añejo, right, and it was amazing.
Fuente.
Right? A Fuente añejo. It was like from 4 years ago. He hands it to me, and he's like, "Put out, like, just let whatever you have that you're smoking go out. Smoke this with me." And it's cool. Let's do it. Yeah. And we did, and I retrohaled it. It was on point. It was amazing. I loved it. I loved everything about it, right?
Yeah.
And then he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, you're never getting one of those ever again."
It was that crop.
He's notorious for that shit.
Yeah, I know.
The only way you'll come close to that is if you buy a box of añejos and then sit on it for 4 years.
It's almost like I did that.
You bought a box, you've already smoked a bunch of them.
No, I gifted a bunch of them. It's different.
I'm saying you're not sitting on
They're
it for
gone.
4 years.
No. I still have half a box left.
You have 4 years to
It's
go.
at the back of my fucking locker. I'm trying to forget they exist.
Yeah, but I think I cut one for you the other day.
No, that was one that like past me put in my thing so that I didn't get into that box.
See, I was
Like,
trying to explain this to
looking at
Steve,
it.
where it sucks that this hobby, right, is actually expensive.
Right.
And the point that I'm trying to make is that Steve used to have an amazing whiskey collection before we even knew each other.
Okay.
And listening to stories of the Scotches and the Irish whiskeys that he had that will probably never be like reproduced again.
Right.
But that's what happens is when you're collecting and you have hobbies like this.
Yeah.
It's hard to have daily drinkers or daily smokers, like daily smokes, daily cigars, where you have to buy what you're going to sit on and keep, but then you also have to buy to enjoy in the now, right? And it definitely racks up some change, and it sucks. But I mean, if you want to do that route, I mean, and everyone has like stupid hobbies that they spend money on.
Sure.
But if
go to your car thing, right? I mean, like, how many people do you talk to? You know, when you like look at like classic cars or whatever, you're just like,
we just had Raina
man.
on. She's got a blue Hellcat, and she's getting the entire motor rebuilt.
No, I'm even going. That is something like when you get a nice car, right?
Yeah.
You get a toy car, something you're really proud of, and then you drive it, and you're like, all right, so now this is shot. Now I've got like 50,000 miles on it. I remember it was new. I'm more going back to, you know, your parents or people that your parents knew. Like you talk to your older generation. They're like, man, I had this like 1969 whatever. Man, I should have held on to it. It's like it's a fucking car. You don't hold on to it. You don't know what's gonna happen. Like you're just living life at that point. Yeah, we should all have held on to things in the past and not driven them or not drank them or anything like that.
There are so many guys at the shop who say things like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I should have held on to this car. I should have waited on this cigar. And as someone who's like hobbies are consumables, right?
Yeah.
Like you're consuming. Like it's a problem. It's a real problem.
But when you speak to somebody like Brad and he brings out like a box of something, if you don't smoke that with him,
I know
he's gonna be pissed.
You never fucking get it again.
But that's what makes.
And it's not that he's like. That's not to say he is amazingly generous and he has gifted me some amazing cigars.
It's a double-edged sword.
Right?
He's a real big asshole.
But then I'll never fucking get them again, and I'm like.
But it's really about
that's so good.
It's about the experience. Like that's the thing.
It's the experience.
And that's what I had to learn. Yeah. Like I remember when I first started working in the Tinder Box.
Yeah.
And I had someone like gift me a Cuban, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually Mark Turok, or not Mark, Greg that moved down to Florida.
Yeah.
He gave me a party gift, like #1 Maduro. It was my first Cuban that I've ever had.
Okay.
It's a bold Cuban.
Fell in love with it, and
I brought some back from Italy.
But I wish I would have kept it. But it's also one of those things where, and I learned this from Steve, where it's like if someone gives Steve a Cuban cigar, like he's gonna smoke it there.
Yeah.
And this was before he went down there to Cuba.
Now I'm actually like not smoking a lot of the ones
I know you got a full thing in
and
there.
I reached out. I'm not gonna say it. I put a request in. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I put a request in for 10 more Montesdales because like once you go down to Cuba in the group, if they have, I was like, just throw like 1 or 2 in each of the suitcases of every 4 guys that's going down there. Like you don't have to like take up much room. Like you throw in 2, you throw in. I was just
I'm gonna throw it out
make
there.
it happen?
If
they don't happen, it's fine.
If anyone wanted to bring me back one of the farm rolled cigars, because the fact that they stay lit for as long as they do, and that everyone's like, oh, these are super smooth. Like, if anyone wanted to bring me back one, I haven't.
We'll make it happen.
Bingo.
I've got some. I know Mark's got a lot. I know Brad's got a lot. See, like, if you, I mean, because you are generous as well, and that's how the whole community is here. It's like, it's if you say, hey, I'm not, like, if anyone's listening, I haven't smoked it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I've heard amazing things. But I spent 2 weeks in Italy over the summer, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's heard my stories because, like, I spent 2 weeks in Italy this summer, and when I came back.
Awesome.
Hey, how many weeks did you spend in Italy?
2 weeks. In the Tuscan region. But when I went, I asked the guys, I was like, all right, guys, what do I need to bring back? And they were like, listen, you need to bring back a handful of Cubans that you think you're going to like.
Yeah.
And so I found a tabacaria, which is highly regulated, whatever. And I went and I was like, I walked in, and when I walked in, I was like, hey, I would like to get something I can't get in the United States. At first, the guy rolled his eyes at me.
Tourist.
Like,
fucking tourist.
Fucking tourist, fucking girl. Like, she's obviously buying for someone else. That's actually what he said. And I was like...
No. Was it in Italian?
No. In English, I understood it.
Well, you said you were spending 2 weeks in Italy. So.
I was, yeah. But he spoke English because he was, like, a shopkeeper. But
there's actually a lot of people in Italy that speak English.
Yeah, because they have to.
Yeah.
That's actually
for
fun.
the tourists.
Yeah, to do business. Yeah. But regardless, I brought back a handful of Cubans. I didn't bring back enough. Like, I brought back 7 because I smoked 7 on my trip.
Yeah.
And didn't think to stop and get more before I left. But they were amazing. It was wonderful. And then a couple of the guys at the shop handed me, like, around Christmas, a couple of Cubans, and they were just amazing smokes, right?
It's different. Like being a regular cigar smoker, it's not, in my opinion, and I'm not going to speak for you, Tanya, but let me know what you think. It's not the fact that Cuban cigars are better than Nicaraguan, Honduran, or Dominican Republic cigars. It's truly the fact that it is a different taste.
Yes,
like
that's
Andy's
exactly
old number 5.
That's exactly it.
That was a different taste.
Yeah, it's just different.
Well, and it's like anything that honestly.
The Cubans are good.
Honestly, it's anything that it's like anything that I've been gifted. Like it's a unique experience, right? Yeah. So even if it's a gifted thing that I'll never fucking get, Brad. Even if it's something I'll never get again, it's a unique experience, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about, like being generous, right? Like amongst cigar smokers, amongst whiskey drinkers, like it's a thing. Like if you put in what you get out of it, like, and that's what I think, and
that's why Brad got mad at you this past week.
Oh,
where you tried to put money in his locker for giving you good whiskey.
So he gets Post-it notes. Like, that's what he gets. Like,
I love how our locker rooms turn into like actual like lockers, with
slightly rude messages. I mean, you know.
It's perfect.
As you do.
I love it.
As one does.
What I find hilarious about this podcast is the fact that when I did my video on my phone, I talked about how, like 2/3 of it normally is going to be about the topic, and we're like almost an hour and a half in, and then
you're welcome.
If we're talking about cigars and whiskey for an hour and a half.
Before we dive into it, if you want more about Valentine's Day, go to episode 2 of the podcast.
They will cover it.
Yeah,
It's a really good. I highly recommend.
But I did want to move this on a little bit, and when I was thinking about this topic. Saving. Please share it, people. Good to see you, Dominic. Good to see you, Tyler Hills. Thanks for tuning in. Scott GK, Andy, Diana, Raina, Michelle. I hope you guys are all in still.
Thanks, y'all.
So I was thinking about
topic.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about how there's always people out there, and myself included, where you're thinking about how Valentine's Day is a stupid holiday, right? It's a Hallmark holiday. It was made up for either marketing purposes or blah, blah, blah. And the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people feel like that, but I kind of wanted to play devil's advocate where it's, I believe that it's a great holiday, and here's my reasoning.
Okay.
My girlfriend just left, but I wish she would have heard this part. But so
she can watch it back.
She had asked what we wanted to do for Valentine's Day, and I think some people would say that would be almost a loaded question, right? Well,
sure.
Like, no, I don't want to do anything, or they're going to get mad. And it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy or whatever, your significant other, you're asking that, and they say, well, I don't really want to do anything. I didn't have anything planned, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, I didn't say. So what I said is that, no, I wanted to do something. I wanted to at least go out to dinner and stuff like that. And the reason why I say that is because some people need a date.
Uh-huh.
And when I say date, it doesn't mean a date as in going with your significant other or your loved ones. Mm-hmm. It just means a date as in they have a set date on the calendar where they can go and do something. Because I know for me, my life has been so hectic lately, and I'm super busy. I'm working, 12, plus hours a day. Yeah. And I think most people that have that same, and it's not a problem, but most people that endure that same experience, I think that they feel they can't get out with their loved ones. They can't make time for their loved ones. And then you lose track. And the reason why this brings it back to the whole, going out to dinner and setting a date for Valentine's Day is the fact that for me, it was a day to express my love, my compassion and my passion, my feelings and my caring for my girlfriend. But for most people, I look at Valentine's Day as something, and I know it's nowhere near the same, but it's like Labor Day weekend or Memorial Day, or where it's based around spending time with loved ones. Like hell, like I'll give my mom a Valentine's Day card, or whatever significant other. And my point is that for those that do see it as like a Hallmark holiday, I encourage you to maybe look at it as a time to slow down for that day for a second and actually do something if you haven't. And there's always the people that say, well, if my significant other wanted to do something, they should have done it like yesterday or any day. They can.
Or you're
do
just
that.
bitter about things at that point.
Yeah, and I think that if you're looking at it as a positive, and look at the actual date, it's just a date on the calendar that you can say, oh, well, I want to celebrate life and I want to celebrate it with you.
Sure.
See, personally, I would rather stab both my eyes out than go to dinner on Valentine's Day.
Just straight to the point.
Hang on.
Hey, let me be honest here. Like,
explain that.
People are giant dicks on Valentine's Day because,
like
and I will say this, not in a really good way, because that's not what it is.
Because stabbing your eyes out, first of all, stabbing your eyes out is
Have you ever tried?
No, stabbing my eyes out?
Yeah,
no.
I mean,
I like personally,
she's very vicious.
She's very proficient.
Fond of vision, but
very vicious expression.
All right, come on, explain it. Let's hear it. Let's have at it.
I will say, I would rather that because honestly,
Why?
people. If you go out, there's a level of entitlement in the public in general on Valentine's Day. Because when you go out, like if you go out and you have to share, like if you're at a place where they have to share tables, right? It's a long table and you have to like be across from your significant other.
Bad reservation.
Yeah.
Go on.
Right. I mean, that happens though. Like you've
wrong
tried.
restaurant.
You
That's
fucking.
true.
You fucking tried.
You don't go to a hibachi grill
You
on
fucking.
Valentine's
You
Day.
fucking tried. You tried a week beforehand and everything was booked. Like whatever. You're trying to do the best you can for your significant other because you're trying to be romantic. You're busy. Like it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
So you go out and people are just assholes.
Are you talking about like other people? Hang on. Are you talking about other people at the restaurant? Are you talking about people that are working at the restaurant?
No. Well, sometimes, yes. But, and really, I don't blame the people that are working at the restaurant because, like, they're having to deal with, from the mass public, just this level of entitlement of, this is my day, and I need to show him or her or them exactly what I feel, right? No, like, do that on a Tuesday. Like, just for whatever reason. Like, bring
Whiskey
home
Wednesday.
Or Whiskey Wednesday. Bring home a
Good thing it
fucking...
falls on a Thursday.
Bring home a fucking bottle of whiskey. Like, for me anyway. I mean, I don't know about your significant other. Bring home a nice bottle of whiskey. Like, I'm more into that than flowers, but hey, whatever.
It has a wine label on it.
I mean, it has an elephant on it too, apparently.
That's true.
Apparently that sells. But, like I know. I tend to buy by bottle, or honestly, a lot of the time with cigars, like if I'm trying something new, if the label like pulls me in, the band, I'm like, oh, I'll try that. That's interesting, right?
So you're one of those.
This looks like it tastes good based on the.
So you're one of those people that are actually saying that if the other person wanted to do something, they could just do it.
No,
right?
I'm saying,
and that is true.
I'm saying they can. I'm also saying that that's not a standard to which I hold any of my partners. Like, it's not you don't love me because on Valentine's Day you didn't get me 24 roses and you can take me out to a nice dinner where I didn't have to share a table with anyone because that's apparently a lame reservation. No, I'm not saying that.
Well,
what I'm saying is
lame.
Like it is a commercialized holiday. It definitely is, just like Christmas, which will get me a lot of flack for that. But
oh no, I had a Santa Claus issue on the Christmas podcast, so.
Like I personally don't typically like any holiday except for Halloween, but at the same time, I recognize there are people who have to have that date on their calendar. They have to have like a firm reminder that this is the day on which you express whatever you feel to whoever, right? But I'm personally one of those people that honestly would rather stab their own fucking eyes out than go out to dinner on Valentine's Day and have to deal with people because people are dicks and I don't like them.
You like people?
In general, no. Like as a population, we fucking suck.
Oh, wow. We've got some issues. It's funny. Like I'm hearing this stuff, and I went back and then I listened to part of the episode 2, and I did have some of the same points, right? I was like, fucking celebrate it if that's what you need. Like, it's the calendar. I mean, I remember these conversations. It was kind of around the table of the 18 people we had on that podcast because we were still new and we didn't realize that you had to narrow it down.
And we thought 3 hours.
We were like, exactly. We're like, oh, if we have that many people, like everyone's gonna want to talk. It's gonna go forever. And now we have like 3 people on, or even just Jake and I. It still goes 3 hours, but
good for cleaning.
Good for
just
cleaning.
As a heads up to anyone.
For those of you that are looking for a purpose of the Bourbon and BS podcast, go ahead and clean your house.
Fucking do it while you're drinking bourbon because then your house looks so much nicer.
Yeah. Hopefully. But I will say, so I get what you guys are saying on this whole thing. As far as Valentine's Day, I mean, there are so many issues we've talked about before, especially on that episode where it was simply like, if that's the day that you do something, you make up for a lot of things you're messing up in your relationship. I mean, it's a reminder, it's a recentering moment, hopefully, that you can have. I mean, it's like to Jake's point, I'll say this is, you said Labor Day and all that stuff. It's about, it's something that is made up for a purpose that it will remind you of what the purpose of the holiday is. So it's not, it's spending time with family, people that are important to you. But you think about some of the things like Memorial Day, there's a purpose to that holiday. Yeah. 4th of July, there's a purpose to the holiday.
Fucking 4th of
Christmas, well, no, I mean, it's actually...
What? I don't like fireworks, and my dogs don't like fireworks, and people who set fireworks off for like
Independence Day, though, so it's actually a pretty big day.
People who set their fireworks off for weeks before and weeks after can blow a bag of baby dicks. Like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
No.
That was probably the most graphic comment we've ever had on the podcast.
I would definitely put an explicit.
I feel like you can edit it. I'm sorry.
No,
I should have asked. I definitely should have asked.
Alicia and Dustin took pictures, and all that I'm going to post is a picture of the 3 of us.
A bag of dicks.
And baby dicks. And then the caption is just a bag of baby dicks.
I just like Channing and Erica just tuned in, and now you're hearing that. So what?
I am so in advance. In retrospect, I guess I am so sorry.
You're not sorry.
You're not.
I use sentence enhancers. It's colorful.
It is. So my point is with Valentine's Day, I appreciate both sides of it, right? So I think it's about where you're at. I mean, we talked about this in the previous one as well.
Yeah.
But it's like if there's the emotion tied into it. If you're having a bad relationship, you're in the middle of a bad relationship, you don't know how to handle Valentine's Day. If you feel like you messed up, you might go overboard. If you're super romantic, and hopefully the idea or the ideal relationship is that you're on the same. It's not that bullshit of. Oh, you don't have to get me anything for Valentine's Day. There was like a meme and that I saw today, and it was like the equivalency chart, right? And it was like a mouse, and there was a mouse trap, and something else, and another trap, and there's a bear and a bear trap, and then it was like a guy's face and a girl's face that says, you don't have to get me anything for Valentine's Day. Like, it's like you're in a fucking trap. That's terrible. That's not the way it should be.
That's what I was speaking about, though.
I know, but going out to dinner and stuff like that, if you want to go out to dinner, I think if that's what you want. If you and that other person want to do it, that's where the communication starts way before the holiday, right? It's what you want.
Definitely.
So, Liz and I have been dating for several months, and we haven't really talked about it. She's, she's been helping out at the house with my mom painting and everything like that. It's super sweet. But she also knows that things are tied up right now. Schedules are crazy.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier in the podcast as far as with the 10 event, with the house, with everything else. I'm not sleeping all that well. It's just I'm just go. Yeah. So all of a sudden, a holiday like Valentine's Day falls into place right this week. So I did something, in my opinion, was very, very small, because in past relationships, I've gone a little bit bigger on stuff, done the dinners and all that stuff. Well, we're going to the Columbus Blue Jackets game tomorrow night, and this has been planned for a while. What I did when I was running around between work and the podcast was something where it was I went to the store. I'm like, what can I get her that's just something simple that she will have some I don't know, appreciation for. So what did I get her? She came over the night before the podcast. She come back over. I got her a bouquet of flowers, which I just found out after she saw them that no one's ever given her flowers before, which I find
that's
really tragic.
It's tragic, but I also accompanied it with an 18-pack.
But that's always the best place to be.
Hang on, Tanya.
I'm sorry.
I also accompanied it with an 18-pack of PBR. So when she came in, on the table, this table was cleared out. For those of you that are watching, there's nothing on it. I cleared it off. And when she walked in through the garage, I left it open. There's a 18-pack of PBR with a bouquet of flowers on it. She literally came in. I was like, happy Valentine's Day. Did you like the gift? She's like, is that for me? I had no clue. She's that desensitized to this holiday. Yeah. But then she's so happy about it. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, who'd you think that was? She's like, I don't know if you got flowers for your mom. I was like, you think I got a pack of PBR for my mom?
So
Jesus Christ.
Just imagine if you did that on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or a Whiskey Wednesday. Just throw it out there. But
I think I treat her well on every day.
Yeah.
And if I was because of our lifestyle, I'd rather we go to dinner, we go to the bars, we hang out at the house, all that stuff. We're spending money on different things. If I bought her flowers, obviously now I realize that she just doesn't, she's not accustomed to that. A lot of people out there aren't accustomed to just the simple things, because that's what I found with Valentine's Day. Going out to dinner, buying flowers, stuff like that. It's almost like there's this generation thing that has happened where, no, I'm serious, because I heard it from Alicia. She hadn't received flowers much in her life. It's this generation right now, their 20s and even 30s, it's there's a negative thing that flowers are lame, or I don't do that and all that stuff, because that's what, but there were generations before that. It's just like anything else in life. Now if you buy flowers, you do the simple gestures, you go above and beyond, that's great, but you have the risk of if I would have said, hey, I booked us a trip for 2 to Punta Cana for a week, and she's gonna be mad at me because she's like, you just bought a house. Why would you spend thousands of dollars on a Valentine's Day gift? You're an idiot. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep it within my means. We go out to a nice restaurant, we can do that anytime. Because we do that stuff.
I would argue that it's a managing expectations within your relationship situation versus
Say that one more time.
Managing expectations within your relationship is key to happiness. Because if you're willing to be look, on Fridays, flowers would make me happy. If I were to, if we were in a relationship and I were to say Friday, on Friday, that's what would make me happy. And you were to go, you know what? Flowers on Friday would make her happy. I'm gonna make her happy. It's that fucking simple. It is literally that simple.
Yeah.
It's simple you have to express what will make you happy. Like you didn't know she'd never received flowers, right?
No, but I know she likes PBR.
Right. So but you knew that, right?
The
so
funny thing was,
managing expectations. Like if you had just had a case of PBR, she would have been blown the fuck away.
Yeah. Side story. I was actually at same Kroger where I got the bottle of Henry McKenna. So I went to the liquor store. I got the Henry McKenna. Had that already paid for. Then I walk over to the flower counter. My experience is it's funny, like, you know, like
what kind of flowers did you get her? I'm sorry.
So I didn't do roses. There were a couple roses in it, but I did like just a basic like $20 bouquet, right? Like it was like white, red, you know, like stuff. Like it was kind of Valentine's Day theme that they had there. That, you know, they overcharge for everything on Valentine's. Like everything goes up. But actually, like the prices weren't that bad.
Their flowers are amazing.
Yeah.
My favorite flower in the entire world is Elastromeria or Peruvian lily. They are
there's a couple lilies in this. I don't know. You have to look at them.
They're a year-round flower, and they are $3 a bundle at Kroger. I know this because my husband, he would randomly pick me up some.
That's sweet.
And it's super, and it's a super inexpensive thing. It's not about.
Yeah, if you're spending $50 a week on every
like
Friday,
that would be
like, dude, that's $200 a month. What are you doing?
Like I could spend that on cigars and bourbon. Like who are you? Like no.
See, that's what I love, the fact that we live our lives equating things to the amount. If we spend money on something, it's the amount of whiskey and cigars that we lost in that purchase.
Like that's a lot of whiskey and cigars. But no, it's to say this. It is not.
It's amazing.
It is not a money thing. It's not like you got her a case of PBR and some flowers that weren't super expensive flowers, right? Because you could have
put it on the credit card, but
right? But you could have went out and you could have like went crazy like to a florist and been like, you know what, I want that $200 set, like 2 dozen roses, and I need all of these things, or I could have taken this trip. Right? It's not.
Side story.
Right.
Go into if you guys want entertainment, like just to see. You know, it's like when you see like guys at like Victoria's Secret like don't know how to act or whatever, which is tragic and also entertaining. Like go into a flower display or a flower store, just like act like you're looking around for an hour just to see the type of people that it's typically guys, but just the guys that are going in there and having no fucking clue what to do.
100% my favorite, my absolute favorite kind of people.
And it's so sweet. Like I looked at it, I was like, it's so like I'm looking, so I'm like I don't want to get roses. I don't want to do this or whatever. Like
you were literally one of the other guys.
No. I was looking at it. I'm like, I'm thinking like, all right, like I don't want to just get roses and all that stuff. I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, I like this one, but I didn't like. I'm actually picking them. Like I'm like, I don't like. When they put together bouquets, sometimes you have to look at the ones like. Lilies are a great example.
Yeah.
If they're still kind of closed up, they're going to last longer. If they're wide open, they look great, but it's like they're dead tomorrow because they're at their end of their life. But they look great when you give them to them.
Hot water, by the way.
So, yeah, I couldn't find my one base, so they're in a beer stein in there.
No, to that point, it cracks me. Those are absolutely 100% my favorite kind of people until you realize that they are buying flowers for their side chick. Like, that is my favorite.
How do you debunk that?
I will tell you because as someone who accidentally
how do you decipher
listen, as someone who overhears random bits of conversation, I've been in floral shops going, you know what? I'm a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. I can buy my own flowers, whatever. So I've been in flower shops and I've listened to guys go,
because you don't need no man.
I don't need no man.
Right,
It's English. It's great
Bitch.
grammar.
You said that? Oh yeah, man.
Exactly. No, so I've been there and I've heard, oh well, I want to send this bouquet to my wife.
Oh shit.
Then I want to send this bouquet to my girlfriend.
You've actually overheard that before?
Yes, like multiple times. It's not like a single occurrence. It's a thing.
She's a student of her
I accidentally overhear a lot of things.
That's not accidentally.
She's 80% the one chick that's in the cigar shop. All the time.
I definitely am there a lot. Like it's a hobby. I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things. It's the Tinder Box is one of my favorite places to be.
That's awesome.
So
I did want to mention a couple comments.
Yeah.
Chris,
I want to finish my story about Kroger.
I'm so sorry.
Go on.
Please.
It's not even that entertaining. It was just, there's two things that happened that are funny because you talk about that, and I don't know if it's something like just give off as a persona that, like, I'm not like that shady guy, you know what I mean? Because, again, I have a bottle of whiskey in a brown paper bag in the same Kroger. I check out a Kroger 3 times tonight, like within about 10 minutes, because I bought my bottle of whiskey, buy that in the liquor store, then I go to the flower area, and it was like, you know, like there's this couple guys, and like this one guy was again, I think it was super sweet. Like he grabbed, like I think they were like, you know, $10, $15 or whatever, and he grabs it or whatever, and he's like, hey, do you have like a vase? And they're like, oh, do you want to put both of those in vases or all in the same vase? He's like, oh, I didn't realize I grabbed 2. And he's like, I'm going to put one back. And I'm like, oh,
See, that's sweet.
adorable.
Yeah,
adorable.
he's
You know what I mean? Hey, he's trying.
He's
Like,
trying.
Doing his best.
so then I go up there, you know, like in this other gentleman, and everyone's being so nice. It was really cool, you know what I mean? Like no one's being a dick, they're not like grabbing the shit in front of each other. Then it's like a little area, so you kind of stepping all over each other. And like, step back, one guy went this way, and he came back this way. And, you know, it's like you're like doing a dance with all these guys. Because it was mostly guys, there were a couple females in there, but
Sure.
you know, I went up to the counter and I was like, asked her, can you roll? Like, do you have paper or like something nicer to put it in or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I got you. And then all of a sudden it became this conversation. She's like, were you here last year? And I was like, I've been here before? Like, I don't know. And she's like, hey, isn't this the guy that we like, you know, like talked about his voice last year? You know, I was like, okay. Hey, I've got a son that has, like, he looks just like you. And it's like, all of a sudden it's becoming like 3 ladies and me. Like, there's other people like waiting to check out behind me. And all of a sudden she's like, I have to show you a picture. He's 14 years old. I swear, he looks like you. I don't know where he came from. I was like, well, he's not mine. I've never met you before, I don't think. And we're just like bullshitting in the flower area, you know, on Valentine, like day before Valentine's Day.
Right.
And then I go up to the register. The whole time I'm just having this case of PBR with me, right? So I have a bottle of liquor and I have a case of beer and I'm buying flowers. I go up to the self-checkout. This lady who's actually like just this very clean-cut, middle-aged lady with her, you know, daughter who's probably in her early teens or whatever. I'm checking out and I put she's like, some flowers and a case of PBR. I like it. I was like, yeah, that's what you call a keeper. Just flat out. She's like, I'd say so. She looks like she's probably pulled up in like a Range Rover. You know what I mean? Like she's like super high class. You know what I mean? Her daughter's like Catholic schoolgirl. You know, like uniform, and she's like, no, that sounds like a keeper. I was like, absolutely. And it's like, as I'm leaving, like, at Kroger of all places, everyone's just like minding their business. I'm like, have a good night. She's like, oh, I know you'll have a good night. I was like, I mean, maybe. It's just like, because you're just doing your thing, you know what I mean?
How many women have asked you what your favorite flower is? What's your favorite flower?
Mine?
Yeah, do you have one?
Yeah.
What is it?
Leopard lily.
Okay, that's beautiful.
But the reason why is I'm way different than most men, I think, because the fact that my grandmother was big on flowers. So when she passed away, and also when my dad and mom got married, they took all the flowers from his mother's house. Yeah. Not all of them, but most, and we brought them to our house and we planted them, and they've continued to grow. Yeah. And my dad, if you. And Steve knows my dad. Sure. It's interesting because when you look at him, you would never guess the knowledge that this man has on flowers.
Your dad's super sweet.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And the fact that is kind of like our family tradition. When I was young, I had to know about flowers. Yeah. And when I was younger, and we have these 2 beautiful leopard lilies. And if you've never seen a leopard lily, it is orange. And the reason why it's called a leopard lily is because it has spots.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it grows up into it's not like
a normal lily shape.
Yeah, but it's not a normal flower where it has the seeds and then the pods and grows out. It grows up into a stalk and then it has individual flowers on the stalk. But my grandmother was always she loved irises. Yeah. So that's kind of irises and leopard lilies are mine.
So there's sentimental value there.
But that's why I say I'm different. If you ask me that question.
Do you have a favorite flower?
I'm gonna go full blown podcast geek is the tobacco flower.
Well, there you go.
Which is actually very pretty.
They're gorgeous. I grew up in Kentucky.
I really don't. I do like lilies. I like daisies. I think if I recall correctly, and I'm gonna sound like both sweet and also like an asshole. I think my mom's favorite flower is a daisy, but I can't remember anymore.
Okay.
But I mean, those flowers, daisies and lilies, just the shape, they're very, very pretty.
See,
I think roses are actually pretty, not pretty. I think they're pretty kind of lame. I mean, they're not that. They smell good.
They're kind of like diamonds. They're just
they smell good, but I mean, they're not the prettiest flowers.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion.
I don't know, man. There's nothing better than a dozen roses.
See,
like
no. See, I'm a
It does
I'm
look
a Peruvian.
like a dozen roses and a few like white accents. I mean, it's just.
Well, you had
It's
the
pretty.
dyed ones, right? You know, where you had like a bouquet of
Yeah.
roses. Like,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of
Yeah.
those. Like that, some white and like a peach and like orange.
Yeah.
I think that does look nice.
Yeah.
Well, so I've bought flowers for a guy before, because I think honestly I don't think it should be just a girls get flowers kind of situation.
Equal rights.
Yeah, well, there's that, but there's honestly like
I had to add in the
And
punch
that's
there,
what
man.
Valentine's Day is
Yeah.
all about.
Controversial.
as someone who identifies as a feminist, not like a bra burning situation, but I identify as a feminist. I honestly think that not enough men are shown.
Basic affection like that.
Basic affection,
Yeah.
which honestly we've come to a point in society where buying flowers is a show of affection, right? Because you don't just buy flowers for anybody.
No, and my point earlier was like, I think I'm surprised that flower shops do as well as they do, unless you're trying to like say you're sorry or like
Right.
do the
Well,
cliche stuff. But I mean,
A lot of guys fuck up, so it's fine.
a lot of women fuck up too.
Exactly,
but
but they don't buy flowers for that.
They don't,
They
based
have
on your
sex
story.
a lot.
Lingerie or the
Yeah.
flower for men.
The
still
guys
stuck on
the
the
guys who
bra
don't know
burn.
what they're doing in Victoria's Secret, like that's
I'm
who
still
that's
stuck
who's
on
there.
I love Victoria's Secret and stuff like that. I think it's so entertaining to go in there. As long as you know the size you're looking for, like when you're with someone like long enough you know the size, like it's absolutely like it's almost like you see a sigh of relief from the women working at like Vicky's, that they actually are like, you're like, yeah, I'm looking like I like this, but like, you know, they're just like you're not like trying to be that creep. You don't have a size. I'm just like literally like I think this would look good on her.
You know what pisses me off?
As a fat kid, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw this out there. As a fat kid, Victoria's Secret's like their stuff is great. It's wonderful, like whatever. But like if a guy were to go, here's your Valentine's Day gift, and it were in a Victoria's Secret's bag, I don't care what the fuck's in it. I would go, no, thank you.
Really?
No.
Really?
No.
Not a lingerie girl.
No. I mean, I am. I like lingerie, but I like to buy my own lingerie. I like to pick it out because I like to see what I'm gonna look like in it. And it's not a matter of like, oh, he's gonna think I'm hot in whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's I feel hot in whatever it is. But what pisses you off? I'm sorry.
The thing that pisses me off about Victoria's Secret is the fact that they almost purposely don't put like one or two seats in the place.
For sure.
And it's like, it's almost purposeful.
No, dude.
Where you know that there should be seats in this place.
That's part of the entertainment. What do you
and it's
love
like,
that?
God.
Have you've been in, so I've been in a Victoria's Secret, and I've watched guys like try to like look at the floor so that they aren't that guy.
Why?
Who's looking at the stuff. Because, oh my gosh, it's creepy if I look at underwear.
Not
like
at
by
all.
yourself? Is that
Like
what you
he's
mean,
like,
or-
I'm gonna walk in and I'm buying a gift, right? But
Yeah,
like
right.
I see guys alone walk into stores that sell lingerie.
But they might be creeps.
And they're like, well, I mean,
Those might be the creeps that are actually just looking
I
at
listen to
things.
conversations,
Yeah,
but no, like
Yeah,
guys
buying
who
for-
definitely aren't, who are buying for something,
Susan.
and they're like, I need to look at the ground. I need to make sure I don't make contact with the sales girl.
I mean, and I'm pulling drawers open. I'm like, I'm looking through it, man. It's fucking closed.
So we got a few. We've had a few
Sorry,
comments.
yeah.
No, don't be sorry. This has been a great conversation, as always.
I think lingerie is great, first of all.
No, I think it's wonderful.
And
I
as
do.
you get to know that person,
Yeah.
I think, you know, and I have not purchased anything for Liz, my current girlfriend. I haven't yet, but it's just one of those things that it's like when you get to that point and everything like that. I mean, it's not for everyone. If you have that kind of relationship that you think that is appropriate, then do it. It's
like Valentine's Day in general. If you think it's appropriate, do it. If you don't. Like, do you? But at the same time, it's like throwing out, like randomly going out and being like, you know what? She's gonna want flowers. She's gonna want wine because all women want wine. Let me roll my eyes super fucking hard at that.
I like wine.
I like Prosecco. I didn't know that till I spent 2 weeks in Italy, but
Hey, you took a trip
right?
recently.
Yeah,
See, I don't like wine.
in the summer, right?
I tolerate it.
Yeah, before
Oh,
I
Italy
left,
in
I
the
did
summer
not at
is
all.
so majestic.
But like women.
Have you ever been?
No,
men-
I've heard a lot of stories from someone.
Men have described.
Because it is. It's
that
majestic. It's amazing.
They want wine, they want flowers, and they want chocolate, and they want lingerie. Well, let me tell you, if you give someone chocolate and lingerie, you're sending a mixed fucking message there. Like you're saying,
It's a gift for a gift.
listen, I want to see you in this lingerie, but like gorge yourself on this chocolate first. Like fuck you.
Not necessarily.
No.
Maybe after.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, after. After that whole 4 seconds.
Did I ever tell you about that?
No, it's not for me.
You'll get me stuck on lingerie for like a fucking
sorry.
hour.
Please.
There's
Like,
nothing wrong with
I
lingerie.
definitely interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
You have to have something to burn, right? So buy, lingerie.
Or cigars, they burn.
That's true.
Did I ever tell you, Tanya, about this story? I think it was Alicia and I's like second Valentine's Day. The first Valentine's Day, I bought her a bouquet of flowers, and much like Steve,
Yeah.
and we were at college. The only thing I had was a protein mixer, like a shaker.
That's adorable.
So I showed up with like a Muscle Farm
Adorable.
protein shaker
Like
with like a
flowers.
dozen roses and stuff like that. That was it. But our second one, so what we did is there's this little kiosk in Polaris, and it's awesome. So what they do is, and I forget the name of it, I should have looked it up before the podcast, but they cover bottles of wine
And chocolate?
in chocolate.
No.
And so, wait,
I'm sorry.
wait for it.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Go
she
on.
already said no, Jen.
Go on.
So
she probably
what we
appreciated it.
did was that, and it's interesting that Alicia actually did it on her own, pretty much. But so she had asked if they would do a whiskey bottle if we bought it.
Oh.
Would they cover it in chocolate?
How will they?
They did, and it was really really cool. So what they do is
No, I'm into that.
they took the bottle. And you know Alicia,
Yeah.
where she was one of those people where she had actually told me about it first and foremost,
She's
like a
amazing.
week before, and said, yeah, like I asked and I had this great idea, and they said they couldn't do it. She's that
amazing.
person.
She's amazing.
But she's that
That's
person.
vindictive.
Oh, totally.
I-
She does that shit all the
I
time.
Borderline
love her.
sociopath.
I love her.
Borderline
No,
sociopath.
no. I would argue that she's amazing, and you
Same to her.
are a moonchild who does not deserve her
No,
like that.
I agree.
But
So what they do is they take a whiskey bottle, and for our live viewers they can see it, but if you take a whiskey bottle, and I'll describe it for our
Or if you're
listeners.
drinking at home, you have a whiskey bottle.
You have a whiskey bottle, and you take it in there, and they take a thin piece of tinsel, right, and they bring it all the way up to the cork.
yeah.
And then what they do is they wrap a piece of plastic around it, and then they cover it in chocolate. They just dip it. And what we did is we did a Michter's single barrel that was awesome, and we did a raspberry chocolate swirl. And then, so what you do is when you set it down on the table, and you're supposed to obviously put it on a plate, you grab the 2 pieces of tinsel, you unwrap it and everything, and then you just pull, and it sheds off all the chocolate. So if you look at it, it's actually like a cool ambiance, really, where you have like a whiskey bottle in the middle of a plate,
Aesthetic.
and then you have just chocolate
Yeah.
shavings all the way around it.
Right. Glorious. So how was the chocolate?
It
Was
was-
it tasty?
Oh, it was amazing.
I mean, so like you're getting
Wait.
chocolate, you're getting whiskey.
You ate the chocolate off the table then?
No, off the plate. You put it on
Well,
the
yeah.
plate.
But are there instructions there? Because I feel like you do that like on your
So
counter. it's just a
I'm
fucking mess.
pretty sure if you're going and getting it, they're gonna be like, listen, here are some instructions.
You would hope so.
I would hope. I actually.
If you're at a mall kiosk, though, you never know what's
Thomas
working.
threw out I think I'm gonna get a wine bottle covered in chocolate, and I was like, listen, if you do that, I really think we really need to rethink
Come
our
on.
relationship, because
Does he like wine?
he does not.
So he's just getting wine for that.
For
You like wine.
I like Prosecco, but only after this summer because I
Oh
was
my
there.
God.
You would rather have whiskey.
Right, I would rather have whiskey, obviously. But he was like, I would go get a bottle of wine covered in chocolate. You like chocolate? Who does? Yes, I like chocolate. There are some people who don't.
Not everyone likes chocolate.
Granted.
So,
but
Sure,
thing
sure,
is
sure.
that it's a great idea. It's wonderful. There are a lot of people who are really fucking impressed by like you plunk down a bottle that's covered in chocolate and they're like,
no, it's awesome.
I see it's a nice gesture, right?
I've never,
it's
right?
romantic,
It's the
right?
thought, right?
But that brings up a lot of good points where
Yeah.
it's like, and let's talk about those points for a second, where it's,
Yeah.
so Valentine's Day, if you're going that route and you're not bitter about it, right? And that's like not in a negative connotation, it's just in the simple fact that if you guys don't celebrate it,
Yeah.
then that's fine.
Right.
And it's like what you said, you do you.
Exactly.
And that's what Chris said a while back in our comments, where it's like, I think the important thing with Valentine's Day is to be upfront with your significant other and set expectations on how you want to celebrate. You don't have to spend a lot of money as long as you spend time together.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. Here's the thing, though, is when Chris mentions that, it's, once again, we're in a day and age where it's really about unfortunately, some of it is about the outdoing of each other. Where it's, what can I post on social media? What can I do? It's kind of like when you look at, promposals.
Oh
It's
my
literally
God.
called
I can't even roll
it's literally called a proposal now,
I
where
can't roll my eyes hard enough at that.
Look at the camera.
It's
real quick.
been
Just
this.
can't.
It's created
Cannot.
this extravagant thing where it shouldn't be. It's once again a nice gesture at the most, but it's been granted this crazy expectation of what can I beat, really, and what can I post on social media, but then you also have other people where it's, I'd rather be cooked for, or I'd rather cook at home for someone that
was the first time viewer there.
Yeah, then go out for like a fancy restaurant, and Michelle's awesome, and she's actually, to be completely honest, she's my ex-girlfriend's aunt.
Okay, I agree
but
with
great
her.
person, and but it's interesting thinking about how people want to outdo each other when it comes to holidays like this, and what I think it really comes down to, and it's much like you were mentioning about the lingerie and stuff, Tanya, where it's really about if you know that she had been looking at something,
then get it.
Yeah. Or if you want to do that, but you don't have to do something extravagant, and as long as you guys are on this level where I'm not saying like Alicia and I are this like perfect relationship to base yourself off of, but what I'm saying is we're on this, I think we've gotten better at this communicative level where we've talked about things, we're honest about things, and when she just asks, like, do you want to do anything? I know it's not a loaded question like how some men feel. And I'm not, when I look at Steve and point, I don't mean Steve,
no.
but I think of some men.
It's a matter of managing expectations in a relationship, right? Like know when she asks, "Hey, do you want to do anything?" It's legitimately a, "Hey, do you want to do anything?" It's not a, "Do you want to do anything?"
But taking devil's advocate to Chris's point, I think spontaneity as a man to a woman is a great thing, and I think when you have, and I'm not saying a person that doesn't do that doesn't have a heavy heart, but I think when a man has a heavy heart towards a woman and wants to do something with spontaneity, I think it's something special, and it's even it's like Christmas.
So I would argue that that's why I said I would prefer flowers on a Tuesday. It's a
because
level of spontaneity.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with my expectations. It has nothing to do with me wanting to post on social media. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that he wants to express how he feels. Right?
Let me ask you this.
Or me.
Let me ask you. Well, for the room.
Yeah.
Do you think that the spontaneity? Do you think that's one of the things that is wrong with Valentine's Day, where it's almost it's a requirement? And it's not spontaneity at that point?
Yeah, that's personally what I think. I think that it's there's a level of structure. I appreciate a level of structure in my life, but I have to say, when it comes to romance, like romance for romance sake, not romance to any end, because that's a whole different thing. But just being romantic just because you're feeling like like warm and fuzzy inside. I think it's really, really important to just do it when you feel it versus do it when society says this is the day.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean,
that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a couple things, on the feed before I chime in here. Mox, for Steve and Jake, do you guys see a lot of women buying cigars for gifts for men? Yeah,
I saw that. That was a great question.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely, we do. I mean, it's something. The same thing with like the if you have a guy that or girl, right? I mean,
you can buy me cigars to express your love at any point in time.
So any of our viewers out there that have a level, hopefully, as small or large for Tanya, after this podcast,
feel free.
You send bourbon or cigars to my address, and I will make sure that she'll get most of them.
I feel like that's a lot.
Or the Tinder Box at Easton. No, we do. I mean, that's, I guess, my thing. So flowers on a Tuesday, same thing, cigars on a Tuesday, whatever it is.
Because you've had a shitty day.
I see both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, for me, it's, yes, if you need that reminder, and I said this, I think, last year, if you need that reminder, then absolutely enjoy it and take it for face value.
Yeah.
Because if you realize that you have gotten in a rut, because right now there's several people that may be listening to this, but it's something where you may have realized that you went through the holidays, you had stress, right? Say you have a family and jobs, keeping you busy, and then all of a sudden you're trying to buy things for your kids, and then there's a lot of relationships. The husband and wife, mom and dad are really pushing to make their kids happy. Like their priorities change. And some of the priorities that shift during that time are the fact that you and that significant other don't necessarily look at each other and trying to show that to the other person. So that's where I do like things like the holidays, like Christmas, like Valentine's Day, since we're talking about that, is there should be maybe a reset button that you might have to really have that self-realization that
come to Jesus talk with yourself.
With yourself, yeah. So you say on a Tuesday, well, Valentine's Day this year is on a Thursday. So the flower shops, the chocolate shops, the lingerie places, I mean, they all have.
Do it on a Friday when it's half price.
There you go. But I'm saying, my point is that if you need that reminder, I am of the opinion that you may need that reminder, and then therefore you start going that way. But there's no right way to do it. It's literally, there are two people in that relationship that you need to have a greater understanding of what the other person expects, wants, and everything else. Now, even if they expect a certain thing, you can go above and beyond. You don't have to necessarily go beyond your means. That's the big part.
No.
If you have the means and you want to...
Stay within your means.
Absolutely.
Please.
But to the point of Valentine's Day, I think that was my point earlier, the fact that flowers are kind of like for certain demographics right now, flowers, lingerie, and everything else, they're like too cliche. It's like that whole hipster mentality, I'll say that, is that it's like, oh no, I don't do that, because it's traditional and everything else. I want to do something different. It's like, well, try to blow their mind and actually do something, because now doing some of the traditional things are actually not the trend. They are against popular culture, and I think that's where you actually will get to the point where you might show them something where even if you showed them affection and some spontaneity, spontaneity is not always a good thing, it's not always a bad thing, but I will say that it's the consistency that I think when you're talking about relationships, when you get to Valentine's Day, you may either up your game or you might just treat it as, hey, Valentine's Day is like any other day, I want to show you that I love you. But again, that's where, like, for me, it's like buying flowers and everything. I at least wanted to, I guess, tip my hat to the fact that this is a holiday. We are in a relationship, so I'm going to do something, and I'm not going to, I don't have the means to go, buy you, super expensive jewelry. I don't have the means to necessarily, fly you across the country or across the world. But at the same time, we can do dinner, we can do something else, and you can be that other couple where it's like, to your point, Tanya, I'm not going to go out on Valentine's Day. So for Valentine's Day this week, or this year, you can easily say it's the 14th, so we're going to go out on the 15th, we're going to go out on the 12th, we're going to do whatever. So you change it up a little bit because you know that other person that, if you're in a relationship with someone like Tanya, that you're just like, I know you don't like to deal with Valentine's Day dinner rushes, so instead of going out and doing the whole ta-da about that, we're going to actually go, like, hey, I made what are you doing on Monday?
Exactly.
Like, I made reservations for Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
And you will blow the socks off of that significant other because they don't like this and you have been paying attention in the relationship. So therefore, your gift, no matter if it's Valentine's Day or something else, it is catered to the relationship. It's catered to the person. Yes. That's where, like, we're talking about these different scenarios. The point that I want to make is that there is no right way to do it. It's about the relationship. It's about the two people in the relationship that you want to actually show them that you do care about them. So that was my whole thing. Again, for me, it was like knowing what I know of who I'm with right now. I figured something simple. It could backfire. She could go and tell her friends, if you're in a relationship, that would be like,
he got me a case of PBR and some
what do you do for you? Like,
Ugh.
she'd go, and that's that whole point of Valentine's Day that we haven't really talked about, is that what happens after that? You're good by yourselves, but then that peer pressure, you know what I mean? It's that outside circle, the talking in the ear thing of something where you're like, after a holiday like Valentine's Day, they ask, like the friends ask, like, so what did Steve get you for Valentine's Day? What whatever it is. And it's like, if you're in a stable relationship, it doesn't fucking matter what they say. What are you guys joking about? I like how I listen to you guys, but as I'm trying to make my point, they're just like,
I'm listening. I swear I was listening.
I literally wrote down.
Honestly, I don't care.
I literally wrote down long pause after Steve was done talking.
Yeah.
And yet you guys talked.
No.
You did. You ruined it.
No, what I was saying.
Story
what I think, and I agree. I agree with you. I agree. Do your relationship, and you can't rely on external validation. Like, you have to have internal validation. And if you're one of those people that requires external validation, then you're gonna have an issue. It's never gonna be good enough.
Well, that's way beyond just Valentine's Day.
Like,
yes, absolutely.
Right. But like with Valentine's Day in particular, I know a lot of girls. I was in a sorority, like, that I can't mention because we're drinking.
Is it a sober, dry sorority?
It is. I'm
sororities are not allowed to.
But regardless of that, I know a lot of women who are totally good with the fact that their boyfriend got them a case of PBR and some flowers. They are totally 100% good with it until they're like, what did you do for Valentine's Day? Oh, he got me a case of PBR and some flowers. That's it.
Well, yeah. I think, yeah.
But you have to be strong enough as a person to say, yes, that's fucking it. One, I really enjoy fucking PBR. But two,
first of all, those friends are a bigger issue 364 days out of the year also, by the way.
Exactly.
They're not just judging you on Valentine's Day. They're judging you on everything that you do 100%. Day in, day out. And you end your nights when you go out with the girls, because that's what we're talking about. You go out with the girls, and it's like, so how was your night? Like, no, it was great. And then we got drunk, and then everyone got in a fight. And you're like, cool.
Can we dive deep for a second since you just mentioned that?
Please.
Like, remember last week when I was talking about the conversation I had with AJ about how people, it's mainly about having control over their own lives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I hear when I hear the situation that you just had.
Yes.
Where, and it happens more often than not, where you have, and it doesn't happen with just women either. Let's not, get that messed up. But, it happens with guys too. It's like, well, how much, I remember in college where I'd hear, when I went to Ohio Wesleyan, you have people that have a lot of money. They came from the East Coast. They either come from Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to Ohio for, private school, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I'd hear fraternity guys talk about, like, well, like, how much did you spend on your girlfriend this Christmas? Or whatever holiday it is, right? And it's interesting to me because the first thing that comes to my mind is the control and the confidence over their own life. And it's when someone fucks that up, when you have a friend, air quotes, that says shit like that, where it's like, oh, that's it? Where it really comes down to the simple fact that if you second guess yourself as soon as someone says that, whether it be Valentine's Day, Christmas, or any holiday, or whatever it is, it's instantly, it's not credited. Yeah. It's discredited because you don't have control and confidence over your own life and in the relationship.
Because
Well, so two things
you
that-
didn't do enough.
Well, there's two things that again, that's what I said. That based on what Tanya said about friends, right? When like you get that validation or no validation, there are 364 more days out of the year that you're already fucked, right?
Exactly.
So like that's one thing. What I will say about this, if you're in a true, again, I'm of the opinion that if you're in a true good relationship, that you and that person are happy. One of the things that we haven't touched on yet, as well, is that. So for example, I've already exposed what I gave to Liz for Valentine's Day the day before. If she goes above and beyond, one of the things that I've learned over the years at this point is that sometimes when this stuff happens, when you're dealing with gift giving, it's not just about what the other person wants. I think that's first and foremost what they want.
Yeah.
But there are relationships out there, so if the other person goes above and beyond, but you know that person well enough, and again, we're taking the outside factors in, because if you have outside factors, you're fucked most of the year, right? Like
Exactly.
you're dealing with that on every other day, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, what did he say to you? What did she say to you? Like, oh, you're pissed, like, oh, you're here at the cigar shop again because obviously you're having issues. Whatever it might be, right? But if the other person gets satisfaction and actually some gratification out of showering you with those gifts or those gestures, whether it be for Valentine's Day or other days, there is actually some appreciation for that if you actually care and love that person. If you care about that person and it's like, hey, I'm gonna do this. It doesn't have to be this one-up thing where it's like, I'm looking at it from my viewpoint after the relationships I've been in, including a marriage and everything else. There are things that as we all will deal with, is that you would do things differently. And sometimes you go above and beyond, it's not appreciated. But if you go above and beyond and it is appreciated, and the worst they say is, you really shouldn't have done that, but I absolutely love it. Because to your point, Jake, with the whole thing with people in college, and as you get older, it's like, as people propose and everything else, and it's like, what I proposed with a ring, right?
Yeah.
I got them a ring based on my income level. I was smart about it, and also what that person wanted.
Sure.
But on the flip side of that, if you are a truly a match made in heaven type thing, and you spend $10,000 on an engagement ring, and you have the means, chances are, if you're doing things right, that person that you gave that $10,000 ring to, that is important to them based on the way that they were socialized as they were brought up. Or on the flip side, they think it's too much, but they actually appreciate the fact that it's important to the person that gave that ring to them. So,
are you familiar with the love languages idea? Like ideology. There's a you can go online. There's
I'm looking at you.
There's
oddly, Tanya,
There's a book.
I feel like I am, but I don't know what you're talking
about.
So
there's a book. You can quiz yourself online to see what your love language
French?
is.
Isn't that the language of love?
We're talking about sex, right?
It can be. That's what she said.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day.
But no. There's I don't remember all of them, but it's like gift giving, time.
It's a book.
Time spent. There's a book. Yeah, look, the love languages. Look it up. It's actually really really unique.
Cash for our listeners.
But there's a quiz that you can take to figure out your love languages, because everyone speaks love differently.
What you enjoy, what you expect, and things like that.
How you express love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, say my love language is gifts. So like, I'm gonna get you flowers, I'm gonna get you like bourbon, I'm gonna get you cigars, like I'm gonna do these things, right?
Okay.
But my love language is time. So like, time spent with me. Time.
You're saying that that's what you expect.
Right. So like, but like, it's just who you are as a person. It comes down. It comes down to your personality, honestly. But this is actually a really valid way to look at how you express yourself. Right?
So it's self-realization and education by yourself.
Right. Because we all express ourselves differently.
That's
so
right.
like my love language may be time spent, right? And yours may be gifts, right? So like, you give me a lot of gifts, but that doesn't necessarily translate into appreciation, because my love language is time spent.
Yeah.
So like, you didn't spend a lot of time necessarily getting me these gifts, but like, so it doesn't work, right? So
interesting. So you're saying that it's not about the time spent with you; it's the time spent on the gift.
It can be. It depends on your love language, right?
Okay, so
I get what you're saying, because there are personality types we talked about before on the podcast.
Right.
But there are personality types that you actually have to realize who you are, and then also who you're dealing with.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
it's managing expectations.
can I give you an example?
Please.
So you've done the quiz, right? So what's your love language? What's Tanya's love language?
Tanya's love language. I have 3, right?
Okay.
So mine is time spent. That's my biggest.
Okay.
And then it turns into like my expression is gifts, which is why I gifted all the guys cigars at Christmas. Like that's why I did this.
Not always romantic. This is just
right. No.
signs of affection.
It's just signs of affection.
I'm trying to decipher this as she's going.
I appreciate
No, I
you
can tell
in my
your
life.
wheels are.
Oh yeah, I'm rolling
Like,
right now.
So there's.
Are you looking at the website right now?
No,
please.
No. Explain.
There's this whole thing. Like and there are I think there are 7. I could be misquoting that.
7 different love
different
languages.
love languages.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so next
figuring
time
out,
Tanya's on, we are going to do a subject of love language.
Please.
So let's
figuring out who you are versus who your partner is, and it comes down again to managing expectations.
Absolutely.
Right? So like if my love language is time and yours is gifts, then I need to know that you spent a lot of time on those gifts.
That's what I was getting
right?
to.
Makes sense.
Like I need to know that. I need to know that you're going to spend time with me, and like your expression is you're going to spend time with me because you know who I am, but you're going to give gifts because that's who you are, and I'm going to accept those.
Yeah.
Because of who I know who you are. Right? And it comes down to knowing who your partner is.
So after her saying that, I wanted to give an example. So like if we were
And I also want to comment on that.
if we were significant others, so
Okay.
how would this work? This is
I'm gonna step off
This
screen
is a
real quick.
legitimate question. Right? if we were significant
Go ahead,
others,
candle.
and based on your love language, right?
Candle, put it right in the middle of the table.
Yeah. If and then spaghetti, and then
Please no spaghetti. I'm allergic to basil.
Hey,
Let's do this.
Dustin,
Oh,
turn
you
that light
I know.
but okay. So
Yeah.
so based on your love language, and
Right.
what you explained,
This might get weird.
I'm
It's good.
if I spend
Too late.
if I spend picking out a gift,
right.
I
So
spend
time spent is what time spent with me.
But if I tell you,
And also on the gift.
if I tell you, that's what I mean. If I tell you, if I give you the gift and explain that, okay, so I gave you this gift and you're ecstatic, right?
Yeah.
And I tell you that, so I spent this amount of.
I love the comments coming through.
I know this
on
shit.
the live
Yeah.
right now.
If I spend,
please tell me because I don't have it pulled up. Tell me the comments. I'm so sorry.
no,
Hi
hold
guys.
on. You can read them and listen to me.
I
as
like
well.
Can You Phone Miss Cleo? I like Dim the Lights. LJ Ballard has
these are beautiful.
Cue the music.
Can I just
some
explain this
dairy
example?
Yeah, no, please.
So
I'm so
it's
sorry.
it's like
LJ also says in quotes, "Let's get it on."
yeah. If I'm giving you a gift, right, and
Yeah.
I explain
Tanya
that you love it, Tanya gift,
Exactly.
and I explain that I spent you love it, right?
Yeah.
At the end of it, I think in my head, okay, so she loves it, and then I tell her about the gift that I was going to give her, but the gift that I gave her, I spent 2 hours thinking about, and the gift that I was going to give her, I spent 30 minutes thinking about.
But you spent time thinking, right?
It's not a quantity necessarily.
No.
It's not
It's really honestly.
But it is.
It's observation, in
No,
my
it
opinion.
really-
It's observation.
Yeah.
The fact that you are thinking about it, about what she would want,
Yeah.
whether it be 30 minutes, 2 hours, 2 weeks, a year.
Yeah.
I'm
so
trying
like,
to
so
debunk
like, no,
this
so
quiz.
like if.
You
for
don't
instance,
know. All right, hang on a
Sorry.
second.
No, hold on.
Says the 50 Shades of Everything guy.
Jesus
Dude,
Christ.
I love
I don't-
intro.
We're not getting into
I
that. We're
love
not getting into that.
50
This
Shades.
we
I
don't
love
have the time.
That's me
to
malicious
talk about
thing.
it.
Not the
Wow.
actions, but the fact that the trilogy.
Dustin is dying right now.
I know he is.
Like-
Fuck you, man.
You really like poorly written fiction at times.
Calm
No,
down.
it's-
Everybody
Calm-
likes.
no,
Everybody
Can you
likes.
just explain
Every-
something?
No, we're not getting into that.
No.
I
I'm not
brought
talking
that.
about-
Everybody likes
It's not
something
50
like
we're not
it's
bringing up
cool,
50
you do
Shades.
you. You do you.
Let me get this
That's
off
what
my
she said.
chest.
You bring up 50 Shades of Grey, I swear to God.
No, I am. So you can hit me, but I'm talking. So the thing is
I
that
am going to leave the screen.
we started.
Did you read together?
Technical difficulties.
We read the third book.
Okay, so you read together.
I didn't. So Alicia wanted to see it.
Kevin King says I would chime in, but I have no idea what we're I have no idea what I want.
Accurate.
Big sexy,
Tell,
you know.
tell them you're their best friend.
Oh
like
my
looking for your
God.
best friend.
I wasn't trying to introduce 50 Shades of anything.
No.
I just want to
So-
explain myself
You
because a
You
lot of
don't
people
know.
fuck with me on this,
You
and it's
really,
like
you really
You don't have to
get
defend
that.
anything. You
no,
like it,
you
that's
like what
fine.
you like. Period. You do you.
the reason is because of the
Yeah, to
relationship
defend himself.
that we started watching it because
Yeah.
Alicia wanted to watch it, and we started. It
So-
Todd,
seemed
he likes full
that
body, Todd.
it seemed that because it always came out on Valentine's Day, right?
Exactly,
So for
yeah.
the first 3 years of our relationship, that was our Valentine's Day together. Is that we would go and watch
Did you
50
discuss
Shades.
it?
What?
Oh, I bet they did more than discuss it.
Oh yeah.
I would hope so.
No, we discussed the book, and that's
No,
what made it for me.
no,
Is
no.
because I
Exactly.
Eli Fuhrer asked, so Jake, furry handcuffs.
literally hate you.
So, but for him,
I walked into the fucking Tinder
No.
Box earlier,
All right,
and
calm down.
I had my Buffy
Explicit.
coat on, my Filson
Explicit.
coat, and he's like, "Oh, hey Santa." I'm like, "Real fucking good knee slapper, dude."
So,
Like,
I'm not being quiet, I was-
You
was
guys,
laughing.
and your jokes
in
fucking
your
suck.
in your
like,
defense,
you're terrible.
In your defense, you said, and I
Bobby
quote,
says Alicia's in for
"Hardy
a
har
treat. I think
har."
she already knows.
No, it comes down to knowing your partner, and
You're absolutely right.
it comes down to the fact, like, you had the discussion, you discussed this book, like whatever the book is, whether it's poorly written fiction or not.
That's your opinion.
And that's fact.
I
because
tell you
it's-
what, you sound like a craft brew guy talking about
No,
Miller Lite
it's-
because
it's-
50 Shades
It's
sold.
or it's
a ton.
sold. It's sold because
Yeah,
people don't
that's
know how
called
to
good.
write English.
Damn it, Bobby.
But like I like what I like. It's fine. And that's good.
Goddamn
Like,
right,
do
it's
what-
Miller
do
Lite's
what-
a fine
do
builder
what
beer.
do what you do. But like it comes down to the fact that you spent time, right?
Yeah.
So I would almost argue that Alicia's love language is not necessarily 50 Shades of Grey. It's time.
I've never seen or read. There's like a panic room, right? Like,
Really?
I don't know. I think there's a panic room.
No, I mean, what Dakota
Game room. Panic room. Panic word.
play.
The fact that I'm able to be honest with literally thousands of people on this,
If we haven't
and
been rated,
you
yeah.
No,
motherfuckers.
I'm not giving you shit because you like 50 Shades of Grey.
Actually,
I read all three personally.
So he's actually speaking exactly into what you were saying,
What-
Tanya.
yeah.
And we
You
actually.
spent time.
It's so interesting because the way my mind works, and I'm gonna get it off of the whole 50 Shades thing, but like it's all about when you get down to Valentine's Day, it's all about who you are and who you're with, right? So it's that interaction with people, and I think that we had a couple podcasts actually about sales, and the reason I say that is because if you're actually good at sales, it's also you're good with people. There's two different sides of it, but that's the way that I think that people that are good at relationships, which are few and far between anymore. But if the thing with sales, the thing with other interactions is that if you can have a good grasp on your personality type, and you have a good grasp on the people you're dealing with, especially people that you deal with on a regular basis, or if there's an ultimate goal. So sales is like basically you're trying to close a deal. The negative stereotype on that is that you're trying to close the deal.
I don't want to look at the comments, Tanya.
There you go. You got this.
You're trying to close the deal not only with like a sales scenario, but you're trying to close the deal by trying to hook up with someone. That's that face value side of it, right? And you're not manipulating, but you're actually trying to master that part of it. When you get into the point of when we're talking about Valentine's Day, whether you're with that person for a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, or more, a couple decades, it gets easier if you are in a successful relationship throughout the year. So when the holidays come up, like Valentine's Day, so Jake, I mean, what you're saying is that you have some history with all that stuff, and And yeah, all joking aside, is that you and Alicia have tried to, like any successful relationship that you're still working on, it's always a work in progress.
Exactly.
But you are actually, you're dealing with your personality and the other personality type, and there are things to, I don't know the love language that Tanya's talking about, but I think there is some parallels there, that these types of things are not only about the love language, and she said it, and I love that about that, is it's just like sales, is that it's not about who you're trying to impress. The reason that I don't want to get too far into it, the reason that a lot of relationships fail is because you either put yourself first or you put the other person first. Because if you do that, there's a lot of times you're putting the other person first,
and you lose yourself.
You lose yourself. If you put yourself first, then it's a priority thing. If you put yourself first and also have a respect for the personality of that person that you're in a relationship with, and you know your strengths and weaknesses as a couple, just like a sales type of a situation, you guys will actually have some success. If you don't realize all 360 angles of that,
bingo,
all of the 360 degrees of that situation, you will actually fail because you have neglected certain parts of the situation.
I would argue that it all comes back down to managing expectations, right? Like
well, that's what I was saying.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like so you know your partner.
Hang on.
That's my
I'm
fault.
so sorry. That was my water glass.
No, that's my fault.
I know. It's my water glass.
I tried.
And failed.
Hey, Facebook, we had a little snafu, as you probably saw.
Thank you.
That spilled water situation.
Because you
no.
figure out what happened here. Hang on.
I think.
Hello.
I think when someone moved.
Are we there? Sorry, I lifted that. I'm
No,
so
you're
sorry.
good.
Did I fuck it up?
Oh, you hit the mute. That's wrong.
Bingo.
Is it good?
Yep, we're good.
Hang on.
Okay.
Facebook, hang on. We're not recording yet. Hang on. Everyone, take a deep breath. Realize all 360. This is what happens with the podcast.
I'm sorry.
All of the 360 degrees of that situation.
Can I have some more water, though?
You will actually fail because you.
Can I have some more water? Thank you.
Give me a second.
Sorry, guys. My fault.
Sorry.
We got a little into the conversation, which makes for good video, which is what I love about it.
No.
Eyes all 360 angles
You did
of that.
bingo.
All of the 360 degrees of that situation. You will actually fail because you.
So.
Hang on. The conversation's not happening anymore, Tanya.
It was a
No.
great conversation.
It was actually,
So
and then
I love that we're
Sales
agreeing and saying
type of a
different
situation.
things.
I know.
Saying.
You guys will actually have We some still have success. If double you
I
digit.
know, it's
realize
great. Stay
and they're
tuned.
going up. Hang on.
Stay
Here we are.
tuned.
We're here. I promise.
All of the 360 degrees of that situation.
You know where you're at?
I have no idea.
All right, cool.
Also, I'm so sorry if I ran over both of you.
You're fine. You're
No,
fine.
no. Go. Let it roll.
Sorry.
Hang on. This is mid my statement. All
Yeah.
of the 360 degrees of that situation.
Of that situation. That's where you are.
Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck. See, that's the whole thing about
Fucking
this.
fuck.
I'll just edit it. Hang on.
Yeah.
You're good.
Just go, Tanya.
Okay. So I love that we're saying
For the
basically-
podcast that's listening right now, we actually had a spilled water glass. We had the microphone lifted up by Tanya, who is a first-time guest.
I've never lifted a microphone, so I hit mute. I'm
So I was
sorry.
I was mid statement, and then she hit the mute button. We tried to figure out what happened, but that's what happened. So
Okay, so I love that
Welcome
we're
back.
Hey, I love that we're saying basically the same thing with different words. That we're saying manage your expectations, know your partner. These are things you have to do for a successful relationship, and the relationships that fail, in my opinion, are the ones that don't manage those expectations, that don't have those hard,
Yeah, we are
that
saying the
may
same thing.
have those hard conversations, because they can be hard conversations with their partner. Saying,
Yeah.
I want to watch 50 Shades of Grey or whatever, or like Hunger Games or whatever. I want to do these things. and your partner goes, you know what, I'm not gonna fucking support you. I don't want you to smoke cigars and drink whiskey. Well, that would be a deal breaker personally.
Well,
for me.
that's managing your expectations
Right,
of
exactly.
who that person is.
Exactly. It comes down to, are you trying to put your partner into a box that you have already pre-constructed, or are you letting them be where they are, and are you meeting them as who they are?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that you actually, like, that's where I keep going back to that whole statement of, you have, like, Valentine's Day comes around 364 days a year, and I've been in relationships before, and clearly, like most people...
Have you?
We've had failures. Yeah.
Yes.
Not as many as you
I
might
was
think.
thinking the same thing. Like, oh, you've been in relationships, seem cool. Like,
I'm
no, I
glad you said that.
The point is
No.
that, truthfully, I've actually learned a lot from those, which is
that's someone
fortunate.
else thought it. I'm sorry.
The nice thing about that is that if you learn from those relationships, if you learn from why they failed, and you don't keep doing the same things, and you actually take care of yourself first while you're out of the relationships. Hang on, Tanya.
No,
is that if you learn from why they failed for you and for the other person, and this is a very, very, very in-depth analysis of that. So there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of time for yourself to try to realize it. Then you realize all the conversations, and I'm not trying to get to, like, we're talking about Valentine's Day, I'm not talking about failed relationships. What I'm talking about failed relationships for is because if you want to have a successful relationship, it's about doing things together. Yeah. And it's a happy medium. That's the big thing. So if you're always doing something together, or you're always doing something apart, there is some shortcomings there.
Takes two,
anyone that you talk to that has been in a successful and seemingly happy relationship, first of all, I'll say this, it's not always happy. There are a lot of issues that have happened. There are a lot of times when you talk to someone, that's what I love about the cigar culture, the bourbon culture, when you actually sit down with someone and they tell you a little bit about it, if you're struggling on something, they will hopefully expose some of the things that they went through. And you're like, you're happily married, you're happily 30 years into this, and I'm like, I gotta tell you, what's the first thing I'm gonna tell you? It hasn't always been happy.
Yep.
We were about to break up. We did break up. We took some time apart. We struggled with this. We struggled over this issue. We got back together. We came back to, like, you didn't break up every time, but you actually, you took some time where you things weren't good, whether it be a week, 6 months, anything, where you had to have a moment of self-reflection on both sides. But when we talk about relationships, the biggest thing that I want to say is that it takes both sides of it. If you go into it and you're just concerned with your priorities, if you're just concerned with what you want out of life, the relationship is not there. If you are just concerned, because we don't always talk about that, if you're just concerned with what the other person wants, you've lost yourself.
What I would say is this. I would say that you are in a primary relationship with yourself first. You need to know who you are. And then...
Before you have a successful relationship.
And then, on top of that, if you have a successful relationship with someone else, it's because you know who you are, and then you know who you're in a relationship with. It comes down to managing expectations, and I've said this time and time again, and it's like some bullshit that someone repeats again. But like you have this understanding, like you've had time by yourself. You've had time to know I express things this way, right? And then you know that your partner expresses things a completely fucking different way, right? So you have to understand that you have to be able to somehow equate the two.
Yeah, and to that point, you either have to figure out together based on your relationship status, before that, based on your life stage that you're in, like whether it be age or where you're at. It's not always age, but you're talking about it, Tanya, and I think that's very, very important that you have to understand yourself. But you also have to be in a relationship with someone that is also at that level.
Exactly.
The ones that are successful that I know, and I know a lot, like again, being in the cigar industry, I mean, you know a lot of people at different ages, different relationships and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the ones that I've seen that are successful long term are either they grew up together and they were in that, you have to be on the same level. It's not the same, like, personality, like we talk about personality types.
Yeah.
Personality types are huge. Once you've gone past that, it is that. So if you're confident in yourself, this is another shortcoming for a lot of people, that if you are confident, you've had that time for self-reflection, you've found out who you are, well now all of a sudden if that person that you're with, that you seem happy with, time will show you that if they haven't had a similar experience or they're not learning from you, your experiences, and you're not open about it, you will have another shortcoming because you're at a level up here and they have grown personally to a lower level. Yeah. So now all of a sudden you don't mix. Mm-hmm. You're going to go back and forth, and in my opinion, you're going to go back and forth. But as long as you are learning from each other, that's where you actually have a very symbiotic relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're ahead or if they're ahead, there's no resentment. But if that keeps going up like this, or it keeps going up like this, or one's higher than the other constantly, that is there's resentment there on both sides because you're not at the same level. It's not keeping tallies. I get what you're saying, but it's about you're not on the same level. So it's like if I'm going this route in my life and you're just tagging along, there's going to be a problem. Yes. Unless the personality types fit that. Yeah. And on the same point is that if the other person is going along their path and they're enjoying their path and they have their goals and you are just riding along with them, you're dead weight.
As someone who's dated a lot of, let's colloquially known as fuckboys, as someone who's dated a lot of those, because
you're talking about you, not us.
I don't know about you. I don't know your life story.
I don't have any fuckboys in my life.
But I've dated a lot of guys.
You're not gay, are you?
I made my statement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not making blanket statements. I'm saying for me personally, I know that I've dated people who weren't, I guess, to your point, on my level. Like, they weren't at the same communication level, or they weren't, like, where I'm at, right?
Well, girls mature faster than boys.
I mean, I know.
Middle school.
Actually, fun fact, our sexual peak happens during our 30s, and yours happens during your, like, teens. So, like, fuck you guys. Like, we're just gonna be cougars. But...
Yeah, you're late to the party.
I mean, late? One would say we take time to know ourselves, but...
Wow.
You're late to the party.
You could argue both sides. But what I'm saying
we probably could.
What you
That's
said.
why we invited you.
But the thing is that you have to, when you have a partner that you mesh with, that you vibe with, that you, whatever term you're using, it's that you can communicate in a healthy manner. You can say, like with Alicia, you can say, what are we doing? Are we doing anything for Valentine's Day? And it's not what are we doing for Valentine's Day? Because you obviously have to plan something, or I'm going to be pissed. It's more about, I just kind of want to know what I should schedule.
But you know the point that Steve just made?
Yeah.
It wasn't always like that. You know what I mean? And
no, that's the thing.
It's interesting to listen to, like, you guys, and I've kind of sat back for, like, the last few minutes and listened to the examples that you guys presented, and it's interesting to look back on my experience with Alicia's and I's relationship, where we're not really off topic, but we've taken the Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day will always go to relationships.
Deeper level.
Always.
Deeper level. And it's just interesting to see the fact that and that's why I mentioned that, girls mature faster than boys, because, but in college, I was only single for a month.
Well, bragger.
No, it's not
commodity.
No, it's not bragging. It's just the simple fact that, so I was in a relationship when I came into college. Mm-hmm. We dated up until my second semester of my freshman year. Yeah. And a month after we had broken up, I had pursued Alicia. And the funny part is that the first day that we had Spanish together, and I was dating the other girl, right? I was like, well, if anything, I look at myself more of like a realist. Mm-hmm. And you know how I am, Tanya, where I can, I'm realist, but I'm sweet, and I can still be whatever. But it's interesting that in my mind, the first day that we had Spanish together, I said to myself, if anything would happen with the girl that I was dating at the time, that's who I would go after.
And so you did.
So that's exactly what I did.
Exactly.
And then what has happened over time is the fact that I tried so hard at the beginning where an example was that when I had to wake up for 6 a.m. lifts, I'd go and spend the night at her dorm. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., walk to my dorm and change and shower before. And we did that all the way through my second semester of college. And then we've been together ever since. And it's interesting to see it where now that, and I mentioned the maturity thing, and this may be completely off topic, but I mentioned the maturity thing because now that I'm not saying I don't care and express my love towards Alicia, but the roles have almost kind of reversed where she likes PDA in public. She wants to show her affection. Where at the beginning of a relationship, like I remember like coming up to a table at like dinner, and I like kissed her on her cheek in front of like all of her sorority sisters, and she literally almost like moved out of her seat to get away because she had no idea what it meant to be in a relationship like that. And it's interesting to see the expansion on our relationship through almost 5 years.
So it's
we've got some
interesting.
conversation going on in the comments, by the way, but go ahead, Tanya.
It's interesting that you say that, in that people grow, so they're not just one kind of like affection, like expression of affection, right?
Right, and when you guys say so like when you guys meet that mesh,
like that mesh, right? That changes, and it can change, and you can grow together or you can grow apart. Like it's a choice, and I honestly believe that. But I'll use the phrase managing expectations, but it's you manage those, and if you're growing in a certain way and you notice that, hey, so like I'm cool with PDA, right? Then like expressing that in some way, whether it's verbal, which is preferred because I don't pick up on, personally, I don't pick up on fucking hints. Like if you just are like, oh,
says the student of observation based on what we've
no. Like, but in a relationship.
So that's actually a good point. Right. In a relationship, it is different.
Be upfront. In my opinion, the best thing you can be in a relationship is upfront. You can tell your partner who you are at that moment. That's what I think. I think the best thing you can do is tell them who you are right then.
At the moment, but you'll change. Right,
and that always changes because we're humans. It's a growth and evolution situation. So like maybe when I was 20, my expression, my like love language was gifts, like fucking like just whatever. It's really something you actually should look into. It's really interesting. It's honestly fascinating. A psychologist came up with it.
Of course.
But they obviously. But it's really no. It's really yeah. It's really cool in that you can groups versus individuals, but it's good. It's good that you can look at it and say, okay, here's where I was, but here's where I am, and here's where I'm going. Because
that's the constant growth, right? That's the
what the hell is going on in the comments?
So the comments, we actually had some good stuff.
Sorry.
I do like.
No, you're the guest. I'm just.
So Woogie just said, I like this, and this is after I said that.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to blow some heart rings. So if you can blow.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I can't do smoke rings, but if you can do a heart ring.
Try.
Yeah. So I think this is the moment where we should probably get to the point where.
You said.
Fuck it.
No, we had some comments. So going back and forth.
Watch the GDs.
I'm sorry. Oh, whoa, I'm sorry.
Yeah, language. I gotta put an E on this? God damn it.
You asked me to be here. You know how I talk. We've been in the shop.
No, there was conversation about sexual attraction being a must for a successful relationship. Then someone else said, I don't totally agree with that. And then it went back and forth a little bit where you have to be attracted to the person in the beginning. The attraction does. So someone else says the attraction does help fuel the flames in the beginning, but if there is no other foundation, such as common goals between the two people, shared interests, etc., then the relationship is likely doomed to fail. It becomes a prolonged booty call. And then there's some back and forth. Huh?
Why is that a failure?
No, I'm not saying it's
No.
failure.
What I'm saying is...
No, foundation...
Like
let me finish what's going on in the
so
comments.
sorry.
Hang on. Foundation is important. Looking back, I can see that a few of the failed relationships I've had ended up that way. Aside from being young and stupid, was the physical attraction was the major basis for the relationship. When the fire died, I thought, what the hell am I doing here? Time to bail, because there was nothing there but physical attraction. What I want to say to that, and then we got to get into our closing remarks here, is that I will say this. There are a certain point, and I went through marriage counseling for a little while. In your late 20s, unless you're having a successful relationship, right, and you have, again, to go back to the love language, if that's what's important to you, is the things that aren't just the attraction, the sexual side of it, but if that is of importance to you, and that's what some of the like LJ said in the comments, that's the foundation in the beginning. If you lose all of that, that's where cheating typically will happen. And it's not always physical attraction, it's actually the excitement of attraction, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be emotional, but there's some sort of a fire there that if you lose that fire and you don't pay attention to the fact you lose that fire, and you don't pay attention to that other person, that's what I was saying earlier, is that it's literally the evolution of the relationship where you are constantly doing that. And we haven't really said the word a whole lot tonight, but when it comes to Valentine's Day, we've been dancing around this issue the entire time. When I say 364 days a year before Valentine's Day and after Valentine's Day, when we talk about your relationships in college and after, right, it is, and we talk about personality types, it is absolutely knowing yourself, knowing the other person, that other person knowing themselves and knowing you, which we have not diagnosed it as such, and then there's the communication part of it. So one of the things we talk about in this podcast a lot, and I'm going to bring it back to kind of our core part of it, is the balance. It's the communication. It's actually the balance. You have to be yourself. They have to be themselves. And then you can know each other. So when it comes to Valentine's Day, if you are in a successful relationship and you are enjoying it, they are enjoying it, Valentine's Day should be a no-brainer. However, I have no problem with the fact that sometimes it's stressful because you've been in a relationship for a while, whether you've had several Valentine's Day together or not, but you want to impress that person, but at the same time, you know that they know you. It's like this whole circle, right?
Yeah.
You know that they know you, so they don't expect a whole lot. So do I go above and beyond this year, or do I just go status quo? Do I just come home and be like, hey, I'm not going to get you anything?
Above and beyond. Go with it.
What I will say is that if Valentine's Day makes or breaks your relationship and they're talking to their friends about what did he get you, what did she get you for Valentine's Day, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I was listening, the only reason why I was laughing, I'm just explaining myself, is the fact that, remember on I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, where Rob Stewart's it's like a circle. That's the first thing that's
the deepest part of that.
Okay,
it's like a
I'm
circle.
I'm glad you were there.
Oh
I was
my
there.
gosh.
And I
Poppy
agree.
actually was on your page for once. He said, married is like a circle. I think before you actually said it, Chuck and Larry, ha ha.
No, it's a matter of knowing who you are, knowing where you're at, knowing who your person is, knowing where they're at, and making it fucking work. You do you, they do them, and knowing the fact that you have to mesh at some point. Whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a platonic relationship, whatever it is. Because I do a lot, personally, a lot of my joy comes from my platonic relationships. Sure. Especially in the shop. I have a lot of platonic relationships with a lot of guys. In that I make sure that if some person that I know is having a hard time, I listen to them.
Yeah.
Give them space.
Communication right there.
Hold space, right?
Yeah.
And if I have time to do that, then I do that. But I know me. I know where my outlet is. And if I'm in a romantic relationship, it's a matter of battlefield triage. It's what matters in that moment.
Yeah.
right? Like, what's gonna save where we're at? Like, is it time? Is it listening? Is it, like, what is it? What's the matter? Like, I have to adjust, right? Who I am and what I can offer. And I can only offer what I can offer, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting listening to both of you, and I think you guys know, our listeners and viewers know that I kind of sit back sometimes when it comes to the second half of our podcast, and it's not because I don't want to interrupt or I don't want to be a part of it. I like to take everything in because I think I'm learning something as well, as I think you are too. And again, we're not experts, and it's interesting to listen to Steve and, you know, us together as a pair, and then whoever our guest is, and tonight, Tanya, you.
Yeah.
Listen to different topics, but tonight it's interesting where I love talking about relationships, and again, like, we're not experts, and I think it's important to point out, like, we don't know everything. It's not about circumstance, it's not about what we know and what we've been through. It really comes down to what you've been through and how you've experienced life. But I think it's important to take into consideration what we say. And because that's what, I mean, it's just like if we're in a cigar shop or a bar and you're talking to a random person. That's literally the ambiance of what this podcast is. And I think I'll touch on a interesting example, and it was just literally 2 days ago for Alicia and I, where we were, you know, laying in bed and we were talking, and it's interesting how much value I put towards just us laying there and talking, no noise, in the dark, just hearing each other's voices. And we don't get to do that a lot because either I'm doing the podcast or Steve and I are talking about the podcast late on Tuesdays. Yeah. Basically, from Monday to Thursday, Alicia and I don't see each other.
Okay.
So it's interesting when we can do that. But anyways, so normally Sunday nights are nights to do that, and we don't always make a point to do that, but we did this week, and we had an interesting conversation where she wasn't too happy with what I said, and what I said was, and our viewers know that the past year and a half hasn't been the best for me, but I've been growing, been trying to try new things, and struggling, but I'm still working, right? I'm still working at an end goal. I don't really know what the goal is, but I'm still working.
I will say down the road, this last year and a half will probably be one of the most valuable times in your life.
Yeah, and I mean, you know me, like, I'm always going to, like, push through the wall regardless, but it was interesting because I said one phrase to Alicia, and it made her cry. And it was, all I said is this past year I've been struggling, so I've been growing, I've been trying to figure out really who I am, and all I said was, I told her this, I was being honest, me being realist. I said, if it comes down to it, I don't want you to feel like I'm holding you back. And if you do feel like that, then you need to leave me.
Exactly.
And it really upset her to the point where she was crying, and I didn't understand why. And the next day we had talked about it and spoke about it. And I don't mean to get so serious to the point where it's not an entertaining podcast, but this is being real, where she explained her wants, right? And that's where that communication comes in, where she said, no, what made me upset is the fact that when we first met, all you wanted to do and all you wanted was me, right? And now you've gotten to this point where it's almost like you've talked yourself out of it and being together, and you're not fighting for me anymore. And I said, no, that wasn't my intention. The point was I was actually thinking of you, and I was thinking of best for you, because it's that classic movie scene where it's like, I love you and all I do is care for you, but I know I'm not the best for you. You know what I mean? And honestly, that's what my thought process was behind that conversation. And it was interesting to feel that way behind it, but the main point is it comes down to the communication with each other. It's not like the next day we like debunked and canceled our
You're
apartment
not
together.
talking for a week.
Yeah, and we're
No.
done, and
No,
we're
no,
done
no.
with the conversation, and then we just forget each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we
Yeah.
try, and I hate. I'm one of those classical guys where I hate
Classical.
the word working.
Yeah. No, but you are.
Because
That's a relationship.
It
It's work.
is, but I hate
It's
it
a
because
lot of fucking work
the
to be in a
phrase of
relationship.
it just it rubs me the wrong way, and it's like it shouldn't be work, but it's still the whole process of your own life is a work in progress, and the fact that you want to do the same thing with someone else and mesh that together, if you really dive down to it and really think about it, it's amazing that anybody is married at all.
No, that's 100%.
So that was my
a
2 cents.
A relationship is work. Like nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that a relationship is work. And a long-term relationship is a lot of fucking work. Like you have to have the same goals. You have to be there. And to say, oh no. It's totally about like initially, yeah, there's a lot of sexual expectations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's a lot of that in the beginning, and then it evolves, like humanity evolves. Like we as a group evolve to the point where we're saying, like, I want the best for you, especially if you're in a relationship. I want the best for you, even if it's not me. Even if I'm not exactly what you want. Like that's huge, I think.
Yeah.
I personally think that if you're in a relationship for any real length of time, you're saying, I want the best for you, even if it's not me.
The self-sacrifice there.
Yeah, and it's not a like, woe is me, like I'm a horrible person. Like it's not that.
Yeah.
It's like, so if your goals, because you've evolved as a person, don't mesh up with what I want, then we have to separate, right?
You know what I thought about
Like
though?
that fucking sucks.
You know what I thought about
It
though
does,
when it
but-
comes down to it is, and it brings kind of
Yeah.
Steve's point, like ties everything back together, where you
Yeah.
guys were explaining that, it really starts with you, and then you start like deciphering the situation.
Yeah.
So what I started thinking about was when she explained that, and I obviously had a busy day that day when we were talking about it.
Sure.
I started thinking about it when she said that, no, I want this, and that's not, like, it just made me upset that you basically weren't fighting for it anymore. And it's like, no, it's not that. But what I was thinking about is her circumstance.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about, the Valentine's Day subject, where it's like, it really comes down to, I think, I kind of disagree with, remember you said, Steve, where it's like when you're giving a gift,
Yeah.
you're thinking about the other person, but you're also kind of thinking about yourself as well.
Sure.
Where I take it a different route, where it's within my means.
Mm-hmm.
I take it completely to them.
Yeah.
It's not really what when I think about, if I'm buying flowers, I like Steve's point where I'm not looking at the flowers that are bloomed and have bloomed and they're amazing right now. No, I'm thinking about like 2 days or a week down the road where it's all the ones that are closed. You put the feed in there and the hot water, like Tanya said,
By the way,
in
that's
5
a huge
days.
tip.
And in a week, they're still, and they're even more gorgeous than what they were when you first bought them. But
Yeah.
I take it the route where I'm completely thinking of the person. I take myself out of the situation, and I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way, but that's the way I do it, and it's pretty much worked out for me so far.
So you're saying you remove your ego from the situation, and you're like, what do they want?
Right.
What makes this the thing that is the thing that they want? And that's huge. Valentine's Day, which is our topic, right?
Absolutely.
So for Valentine's Day, for me, like the the thing that I want is A, not to fucking go out to dinner on Valentine's Day. But B, it's like, if you're gonna give me flowers, like, make flowers last for as long as it can, so I can look at them and say, he loves me.
The time.
Right? It comes down to
Love
the time.
language.
I'm so
The time, man. I got it.
No, it comes down to the time. And it like for me personally, it comes down to that, and it really matters. It matters, like, how much thought you put into it, how much time you put into it, how much you take into account your partner, whatever it is. And that's huge. It's huge. Like,
yes.
like very few people, honestly, like, they take into account themselves. Like, they're like, oh, I would love to have flowers. Like, personally, I would love to have flowers. Like, whatever it is. Sorry. But yeah, it comes down to that. It comes down to, like, making sure your partner feels cared for. So that's how I would wrap up Valentine's Day, is that, yeah, it's a stupid commercialized day, but at the same time, if your partner puts a lot of emphasis onto it, then fucking do them.
All
like,
right.
do you. It is what it is.
So here, I'll close it out first. Fuck.
I'm
Jesus.
so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that's what I love about Whiskey Wednesdays, right? We will continue to talk about this after we get off the air.
People wonder all the time, Steve, and we get this question all the time, where, how do you guys talk for 3 hours?
Well, no, we talk for about 8, and then
Like, shit.
we record 3. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. All right,
Sorry.
we
I
talk
would-
until late in the, like I'm saying.
Oh,
we talk
yeah.
for 8 hours.
I got
We record 3.
Sorry.
We try to record 2, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we realize that we talk for 3, and now all of a sudden we're,
The
it's-
podcast continues after it's
Yeah.
already ended.
So yeah, if you guys ever want to be a guest on the show, like, let us know.
Come
All right,
and come to the Tinder Box. You'll get
there you
all
go.
of
come
all of
to
the
Smoking
background.
Tenement. That's the
Yeah.
podcast.
Fuck
on fucking
yes,
steroids.
do it.
All right, so I'm halfway through the Montecristo White, which is from our sponsor Altadis, which is fantastic.
By the way, amazing, in my opinion, except for the fact that during this season, at least for me, it
Exploded?
It did this.
Yeah.
Probably operator, but
Mine was fine.
That's what it did,
Mine's
and that's very possibly mine.
So-
sorry.
It's a thin wrapper.
here's the thing. So
I'm a
Montecristo,
monster.
hang on. All right, everyone, take a step back.
You good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that for my closing remarks is, first of all, thank you for the Montecristo White from Altadis.
Yeah.
That is actually how this whole thing started as far as the sponsorship, is that Paul Waller and Josh Bentley actually fed 200 plus Montecristo White Toros, which retail for a higher amount, and said, hey, we're going to get you guys this, and then you guys pick something for your second cigar. That's where we're at. Tonight, I wanted to do it where we pull another Montecristo White, because this is something that gets passed up. This gets bought in our shop by people that don't know a whole lot about cigars, right? So then we have, like, when we have the regulars, they don't buy these Montecristos anymore because it's like a name brand thing, right?
Yeah.
So they get a bad rap. You start smoking one and you have this mentality of an open mind, or you smoke Cuban cigars, you smoke some mild to medium cigars for flavor. This cigar kicks ass.
Yeah.
Here's what I like about this podcast, and you guys aren't watching the comments anymore, so I'm not going to call this person out, but you guys were talking about your closing remarks, and I heard this. So it says, wow, I needed this tonight, thank you so much. I've never, I don't recall, and to you that comment like that, no, we're not saying who said it. It's just,
Oh, I know that.
calm down.
Whoa.
So what happens is, the follow-up comment is, listen, I have been married, this is the same person, I've been married for coming up on 10 years.
It's dead.
Listen to what I'm saying, Tanya.
I'm listening.
I've been married coming up on 10 years,
Whoa.
and the last 2 years have been super hard. So the things that what we do on this podcast, when we talk about relationships, we talk about whether it be business, we're not entrepreneur, like, fucking inspirations. We're not relationship gurus. We're not bourbon experts. We're not cigar experts. But what happens is that when you get a group of people together, people learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about Valentine's Day, when we talk about relationships, I will close it out as this, is when you are, and this is the stuff that I've failed at, I've learned from, I'm grateful to be in the situation that I'm in right now, and I hope I don't fuck it up. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. When you realize you have something good, you try to, and I'm not saying you go overboard, you try to overcompensate. When you truly know, and Tanya brought this up earlier, when you truly know yourself, and I try to complement that, is that hopefully the person that you're spending time with knows themselves in the same light. That's when true success happens. That's when you realize that it's not about what other people say. It's not about what you think you're missing out on. We didn't say that tonight, but I know for a fact that when you feel like you might be missing out on something and the grass is always greener, that is the biggest relationship killer that is out there today.
Oh, 100%.
If you feel like
I would say.
I'm happy here, but I feel like I missed out. That's part about knowing you. Yeah. So for the individual out there, I don't know your story. I've been married coming up on 10 years, and the last 2 years have been super hard. I did 2 years of marriage counseling myself, and I was not in the place I am now. I know for a fact that if I was in that place at that time, things in my life and that person's life would have been different. My ex's life would have been different. However, we adapted. We grew through it. Life doesn't stop because you are not sure of yourself and you're not sure of what you're dealing with.
No.
So when it comes down to Valentine's Day, what I will say to this is that I said it last year. If Valentine's Day is your reminder, embrace it and fucking change. If Valentine's Day is just another day in your life, you're doing well. But it's the 364 days between Valentine's Day, year after year. If you're bitter about it 1 year because you're not in a relationship and you fucking hate it because people don't want to like, oh yeah, you're so happy, like I don't want to like, fuck, just shut the fuck up and realize that you love yourself, and that's when you actually find happiness. Not everyone has to be in a relationship, and I have not always been in a relationship, but what I will say is that when you have something good, the biggest part about having something good is not necessarily the other person only. It is about the other person complimenting about who you are, and it's that communication that we talked about 364 days a year. When Valentine's Day comes up, and I didn't say this last year, I listened to the podcast last year, when Valentine's Day comes up, it should be a fucking breeze.
Exactly.
Whether you're by yourself or you're with someone else that you love and you're dating, or you're with someone else that you're married to and you have fucking 18 kids with, I will say this, Valentine's Day should be a fucking breeze because you are living your life correctly and you are loving your life and you're loving the people that are in your life, whether it be you yourself and your friends, you yourself and your spouse or significant other, or you and your family. That is what this whole podcast has led up to in my mind, is that when you get down to it, Valentine's Day should be a celebration, whether you celebrate it 365 days a year or just on that day, because life gets in the way. This is when you make a statement in your life that you are happy with your romantic relationship, whether you're with someone or you're not. Just fucking enjoy it and know yourself and know what is important to you. And a lot of times when we talk about Valentine's Day, what's important to you is that other person. But do not lose yourself, and do not put your priorities over someone else, and do not put their priorities over yours. That's the success. It's all everyday communication and self-preservation and realization that you know what you want. And if you don't, you need to work on figuring it out for yourself and everyone around you, because you need to enjoy every day, including Valentine's Day.
Sure.
We're bringing it real here, folks.
Your first relationship, in and of itself, is with yourself. Period.
Absolutely right.
right? So you, and to piggyback off what you said, because I agree 100%, that you have to know who you are. You have to know who your partner is. If you have a partner, if you don't have a partner, who fucking cares?
That's right.
Like your validation has to be internal. You have to internalize that validation, whether it's internalizing within your relationship, whether it's internalizing within yourself, whatever. It's a thing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you don't do that, then you're fucked. You're fucked. So
I like having Tanya on me because I feel like we go like 8 hours.
So I'm so sorry.
No. You've been
I
amazing. Thank you so much,
I
Tanya.
talk a lot.
No, thank you very much.
So thank you for having me on this podcast.
No, I enjoyed it.
I appreciate it. I mean, I didn't anticipate being on this podcast, but I completely love this conversation. It is a conversation I've had many times in the shop, actually. Yeah. So this is a shop conversation.
That's where you're at.
So that's what I love about this podcast, is that it's a shop conversation.
Exactly.
Right. We have these conversations all the time in the shop.
Yeah.
Like there's someone in the shop who said you have to know yourself, and if you don't know yourself, then what the fuck are you doing in a relationship?
Bingo.
And that was probably some of the best advice I've ever gotten, honestly.
That's right.
So being on this podcast, it's like an extension of that. So thank you.
You appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well,
thank you for letting me be here.
No.
And to the person that I was commenting early on, like that person, I'm not going to mention their name because they're obviously going through some shit right now.
Yeah.
Are you up north? We're in Columbus, Ohio. We're based out of Tinder Box at Easton, which is in Columbus. So look us up.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Tanya, for being on. We love the fact that you talk. We love your opinions, and we love everyone else's opinions. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and the support. It's been a great podcast, and it's exactly what we expected for our second year and our second episode of the Valentine's Day special.
Oh, dude, we can talk about relationships all day.
Yeah,
and
sure.
it's been amazing, and we've had some we're bringing it real to you folks, and it's the way it should be. And Tanya explained it absolutely perfectly. The fact that if you've never been in a cigar shop, this is what it is, and that's why we've done the podcast. And that is our purpose. And thank you, Tinder Box at Easton. We're excited about the Smoking Tent event on March 15th. Please look it up online.
So excited.
Please look it up online and call the shop if you're interested.
We're selling that shit out.
We're selling
so
it. It's
good.
going fast.
Do it.
It's great. It's going to be a night gig, which I think is going to be amazing. It's going to be, again, March 15th. It's a Friday evening, so all you workers and all you worker bees, it's a good time to release.
Buy a ticket,
and let
smoke
it rock.
cigars, and take advantage of the fact that I have not slept, and I probably won't sleep much until fucking April.
Come have this conversation, or whatever fucking conversation you want to have. Like we talk about some nonsense or some great things. It's completely amazing.
And come join
So
us.
do
Come
it.
join
Come
Steve
on.
and I. Come join the rest of the shop.
Or me.
Thank you, Tinder Box at Easton, for providing the Punch Grand Puro, Nicaragua. Thank you,
Yes.
Altadis, for providing the Montecristo White
Yeah.
series. Steve.
It's a good cigar.
It is a great
It
cigar.
is. I
It's a
love
great
it.
cigar. I actually like it a lot more than the classic series that we
Yeah.
had last
Oh.
week. I think it has a lot more flavor, but it's awesome.
Ecuadorian, Connecticut wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and then Dominican, Nicaraguan filler.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Great- great mild
smoke it down
medium.
and you can't anymore. It's so good.
Great mild to
Here I
medium.
am.
Gold after
This is
this.
where I'm at.
Yep, I've
Yeah.
already lit up a BS Gold. We're ready to rock. Thank you, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. I'm Jake Sanders, Steve Crane. We make up
Cheers.
the Bourbon and BS podcast, and cheers.